Look, it's already blinking. Dang, she hits that so dang loud. She's scared.
Oh, thank you. We will begin our meeting. Thank you to everyone that's here. We appreciate your attendance. This is Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. We welcome those who are joining us on YouTube, and we will continue on here. We will have our opening by Council Vice Chair Paul Borup.
Thank you, Sherwin Tidwell. I think I'm just going to have my opening be two quotes that I've enjoyed throughout my life and I've tried to emulate here. The first one's from William F. Buckley. It says, "The best defense against a usurpatory government is an assertive citizenry." And the second is from Thomas Sowell, who has been near and dear to my heart for 25 years, 28 years, since I was at Utah State and got a degree in economics. And he said, when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. And with that, I will end my remarks in the form of a prayer.
Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, as we assemble here this evening as a council and as citizens, we're grateful for this country that we live in. We're grateful for the inspired founding fathers that established this wonderful form of government and for the opportunity that is given to millions of people and actually worldwide. We're grateful for this beautiful valley and for this wonderful community that we live in, and for the citizens that are in it and our friends and neighbors and the support they have. We would ask thee to please bless us as we make decisions for them, that we may remember each individual and do the things that would recognize them and their individuality. We are grateful for all we've been given and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chair Borup. Very nice. All right, has everyone had a chance to review and approve the agenda?
I would like to make a motion that we strike 7A. We heard from Chief Hammer earlier today, and so I don't think we need to have that on the agenda anymore. But with that deletion, I'd move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda with the deletion of 7A. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, have you all had a chance to review the minutes from October 11th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 11th.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of October 11th, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain. I wasn't here.
Oh, yep. I should abstain also because I wasn't here. Okay, thank you.
It was a skeleton crew. Y'all.
Yes.
Skeleton crew.
Yes.
Are we going to get minutes from the meeting we had at Hermsen, and also we had another meeting where the council approved a request that we sent to the state for some funding for economic development? I forget the dates.
Yeah.
You've requested that.
Okay. Thanks, Janine.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. Do we have anything to report from our county executive?
Yes, Madam Chair, just briefly, one item. Just would like to let the county council know that I just sent you an email with the final submission of the Cache County 2023 budget. And given today's unique economic times, I'm thankful to be able to present a tentative budget that demonstrates the financial strength of our county. The budget that has been proposed is a balanced budget. It proposes no tax increases, and it also proposes that we pay off a significant amount of debt. I would encourage you to review the budget and ask us any questions you might have. We'd be happy to help you with that. The information that's been provided to the council since August in the department budgets in the Google folder, you'll find that this budget, for the most part, matches that. There are a few minor changes, and we'd be happy to point those out to you if you'd like that information. I just would like to thank the council, the department heads, and especially our finance department for their input and assistance in building this budget. And I once again offer the support of our Cache County team in answering any questions you might have about our tentative budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm really confused. We were given a budget on September 13th, and we have been working at that and studying that budget, and now we're getting a second budget. That first budget had a $2.4 million shortfall. So my question is, why are we now getting another budget after one's already been submitted to the council? And what changes are in there, and what did you do to make up a $2.4 million shortfall?
The number of budget documents that have been reviewed in the past have been drafts. This is the actual submission of the budget, and we can provide a document. I can actually send it to you right now that points out every change that's been made from the previous versions you've seen.
That would be essential.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you. All right. We'll move on to items of special interest. First one, Jordan Mathis. Very good. Hi, Jordan. He's going to give us an update on the opioid settlement and also talk about emission testing fee change. Thanks for being here, Jordan.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to invite Farron Weiss from my team to come up and present a portion of this. I tasked him with pulling together our stakeholders. All right. And there we go. So before I turn the time over to him, what I want to make sure is clear is we presented the data to the council. You asked us to go back and develop a plan. And what this plan represents is concepts, really broad concepts. Our intent is to gather more input from the council on direction, and then we can go put more pencil to paper and say, here's what those things are going to cost. Before we delve really into what the cost would be, we wanted to make sure the council bought into the plan before we spent a lot of time doing that. So that's where we're at in the process. I intend that after we gather this input and go back and work, that we will be in front of the council again with more of a final plan. So we do consider this a concept. I'm going to turn the time over to Farron. He really took care of the process for us in engaging the community.
Thanks for letting us have a minute on your agenda. Just to follow up with Jordan, as a result of that charge from the council to put an advisory board together, if you can see us, I'll read through that. We were lucky enough to get some really amazing people from the community. As all of you know, Cache County is a wonderful place, and there's a lot of very busy people who are willing to serve and help with things like this. And so we were able to get the following. We had Laura Magstadt from Cache Valley Hospital, Tim Cady from Utah State, who's in the audience, Tim Frost from Bear River Mental Health, Brandon McBride, Logan Regional Hospital, Curtis Pedersen from Logan Regional Hospital, Haas Tompkinson, Logan City Fire, Roy Hall, Cache Sheriff's Department, Jordan Mathis, Brock Alder, Tanisha Stoker, and Farron Weiss from the Health Department. We went through a simple process, we call it a strategic prevention framework, to look at data to assess needs and resources in our community, to identify what everybody is doing and what is going on in our community to address opioid prevention, opioid overdoses, opioid misuse in our community. The board met 3 different times for an hour each to go through this process. It was really fun for me to listen to the group. Everybody brought a different perspective, and we have a really good presentation today. The results of the findings from looking at data, all of the resources that address these issues in our community, to all of the agencies, staff, every resource we could find. We went through and we came up with some recommendations, and Jordan will go through those that are all based off of that menu from the opioid settlement MOU that tasks us, and we have to follow the menu of strategies in there. And so the results of what Jordan's going to show you today are from the discussion from those 3 meetings from this group of people. Any questions about that process so far? Thank you.
Thanks, Farron. I'll run through this real quick. The 2 major portions of the plan would be focused on prevention, the other one on treatment. Our prevention plan is fairly simple. We would actually propose that 30% of the opioid settlement funds go towards prevention. The reason that we do this, there's a long-standing precedence in the state of Utah that substance abuse dollars be split 70-30. I also think, being a prevention guy, that it's really short-sighted for us to think that we're going to get ahead of this thing if we can't get further upstream. So identifying how we'd do that. The activity, I've presented and been in discussions with the Utah Prevention Network about recommended strategies. The overall the value of coming together on a statewide level and saying, here's the strategy that we're going, here's a unified strategy that we could potentially implement across the state. You get greater influence on that prevention strategy, and when you look at the data, it also is able to show you that whether or not you're actually having an impact. It's hard when you have lower numbers for us to really determine what that impact is and what influence it's really having. So we're looking at that the strategy is a community-based coalitions, and that is identified in the MOU as one of the approved strategies. So working in that, developing community-based coalitions to start addressing local risk and protective factors, and I'll talk more about that in our model. But that would really be focused on how do we create some of those as a community, enhancing those risk or those protective factors. So that's the prevention strategy. It's tied directly back to Schedule B, Section G of the MOU. If you want to check it out, it's the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions. The next portion would be treatment. So if 30% of it is going to prevention, we would propose that 70% of it go towards treatment. Most of this we're proposing that it would be increased entry points and warm handoffs into treatment options. So collaborating with the county jail, the hospital, and potentially one day a receiving center to be able to have those warm handoffs. People get lost in the cracks, and we'll show you in the model. That's what we heard. People get discharged from jail. I guess you don't discharge people from jail. You release them from jail, and you discharge them from the hospital. So anyhow, they leave that facility, and they tend to get lost. So trying to create that. So part of what we heard was we need to have that warm handoff. Case management would be one of those. The other thing that we heard was that case management may be able to help support these individuals with other factors in their life that really get in the way of their ability to move towards recovery and stay into recovery. So helping with those, and we'll go into that when we present the entire model. And then just increasing overall access to substance abuse disorder treatment within our community. So really focused on supporting case management. We want to make sure that we have no matter what time those individuals are released from the hospital or released from the jail, that we have a connection as much as we can to case management, where that person knows that person and knows that that person can help them to get the resources. The thing I always give is we can't release somebody and then expect them, once they've experienced an issue of, if they're incarcerated, they lose their housing, then where do they go? They go find the closest couch that they can surf on, right? Until they can get on their feet. And unfortunately, that may not be a good protective area for that individual. They may be able to quickly move back into that. So having that resource so that they can, that warm handoff so they can move there. A receiving center is also part of that process, and potentially deferring individuals from both of those facilities, a hospital or a jail. So I'm not going to bore you with this, but we identified the different approved treatment strategies, and there's 3 on this page, and there's 2 on this page. So a total, though this whole concept ties back to a total of 5 strategies in the MOU that we can justify moving forward with that on. So is there, Paul, did you have a question?
No, not yet.
Okay. So I'm just going to quickly review some of the data takeaways. We know that opioid deaths remain one of the highest causes of injury mortality in our state and in our counties. The face of the opioid epidemic continues to change. It's continuing to shift away from prescription drugs and towards synthetic, mainly fentanyl. And we also understand that the more we can understand about who is most at risk allows us to be able to possibly target our intervention a little bit more. So I just wanted to go through this. I think it's important. This is the broad overview. I'm going to go kind of high level and then delve back down. We showed you this slide before, but as you can see right here, this is drug poisonings overall. And then the blue line is actually motor vehicle. And you can see that we've seen an increase in the drug poisonings and a decrease in motor vehicle. And the analogy I want to bring into play here, it wasn't just telling people to buckle up that stopped that. It was looking at the entire system, right? How do we do road design? How do we manufacture vehicles? How do we design car seats, who are the most susceptible in a crash? How do we address behaviors such as drunk driving and speeding and buckling up? It was all those things that led to that even subtle decrease there. And I think we have to look at the opioid the same way. We can't just look at treatment and the behavior. We need to look at the entire system, meaning our community as a whole, and how do we provide that. So with that, the other thing, when we think of supply and demand, this would not be there if there wasn't demand, right? We're seeing this influx of fentanyl because there's demand in our community. So we need to look at that, and I think a multifactorial approach, if we just focus on those that are actually using, we're not going to get upstream. We got to get further upstream and hopefully keep less people getting into the demand field and then removing people from actually using. So this is just a quick demographics. What I wanted to, this is EMS calls. So you can see the question is who's at risk, right? The age categories that are most at risk really goes from anywhere from 20 all the way up to almost 60. Those are the most individuals that are most at risk in our community for EMS call for opioid. And that is just our reported numbers for those years. Our demographic trend, this is not EMS, this is actually people who's at risk of dying, right? When we look at it, this is the crude rates. What you're seeing up here is the crude rates for those age groups per 100,000 of who's most likely, when you apply those crude crude rates across populations who's most likely to die from opioid overdose. And in Cache County, but not in Box Elder County, it kind of mimics our EMS. In Box Elder County, it kind of flips. It's not really, it doesn't follow. So the population that we have, interestingly enough, are individuals that are in that age between 20 and 60. Typically individuals in our community that have family members, households, things like that. So let me get to the crux. I know this is really small for you, but I'm going to go over it. At the center is our treatment model. And the treatment model, what we would propose to change to the treatment model is the integration of that case management. And at the center there, these case managers will be focused on those warm handoffs between facilities. So the facilities you see there are the county jail, the hospital, and potentially one day a receiving center. But the case managers will be focused on those things that we talked about, things that keep people from moving towards recovery or staying in recovery, things such as housing, vocational rehab, access to treatment. I didn't know this until we got into this, but access to treatment is really interrupted when you go into jail because of issues with Medicaid, right? So if somebody's on Medicaid, they go into jail, they're no longer on Medicaid. Am I misspeaking? So right there, you have this huge interruption. So when that person gets out, what do? They don't have access to that treatment. Case management can help with that. Case management can also help with, we're going to try to get them either onto Medicaid, into a job that can get them moving forward with access to treatment. But things really get interrupted. Healthcare, just basic healthcare, the cost of treatment, relapse and resilience training, overdose misuse prevention, that would be naloxone. I don't think we can be naive and say all these people are just going to be magically be able to move into recovery. But we also don't want those individuals, if they do relapse, to die. So how do we educate them and their family members about naloxone? Misuse prevention and other needs. So case management is really kind of at the heart of this. The receiving center, this is what we would like to be able to see, and what we would propose if we do get a receiving center with legislative appropriations is to provide case management where somebody can get an assessment, get referred to the appropriate treatment, and be linked to that case manager. Some of the things we really feel like this can do is it keeps individuals out of the correctional and justice system, potentially keeps them employed because they don't have that interruption to employment because of incarceration. And it keeps them enrolled in Medicaid or other payer to support the treatment. So this actually helps decrease the amount of these settlement funds that we have to drive towards treatment because we're trying to keep them in a system that allows that treatment to be covered. So that's one of the goals of that receiving center, is to help those individuals maintain access to treatment. From the hospital side, a couple things that we heard from them: keeps them out of the emergency room, from unneeded healthcare bills, and individuals that are enter the hospital with substance abuse disorder typically also have the highest rate of violence against healthcare workers, these individuals. And so hopefully it can decrease workplace violence for them. So those were some of the things that we heard. That's the treatment. We also want to look at how we can continue possibly getting individuals on MAT before they're discharged from corrections. That was one of the big things from Box Elder County as well, is making sure MAT is initiated before they leave. But the integration, and I think we got to quit treating it in silos, treatment and prevention, because people can leave treatment, and then what's the community that they go back to, right? Are those risk and protective factors in place for them? And what we mean by risk and protective factors are all across here. So I won't go into all the detail. Community prevention model, a school prevention model, individual peer and prevention model, and family prevention model. These things are all strongly correlated with decreases in antisocial behavior such as drug abuse, suicide, violence. All these risk and protective factors are strongly correlated with helping individuals to, when we think of ACEs, they're also strongly correlated. When I say ACEs, I mean adverse childhood experiences and what those end up leading to for individuals. So our ultimate model would be, how do we help provide the treatment for the individuals that helps them with the greatest chance of recovery? And how do we look at what's going on in our community and start addressing those risk and protective factors so that when people leave treatment, they have a higher chance of success of staying in recovery for the rest of their lives. So that's really the overall model. And right now would propose that would just start at focusing on about a 70-30 split of the funds. I do want you to know that I am actively advocating with the legislature to take their 50%, and if communities will prioritize dollars 30-70, that they would put a match towards it, because we did get a decent settlement, but it'd be nice to have those other dollars matched to help us make it a little bit further into our community. So I'm actively advocating at the legislature to try to convince them. They haven't decided what they're going to do with those dollars. Any influence you have on that would be awesome. But that's our conceptual model. Did I leave anything out, Farron? All right. Any questions for me?
Nope.
Is this proposal fairly consistent with other districts that maybe you've talked with?
I've actually had two other, when I presented it to other districts, they said, can we have this? And I said, for half of your opioid settlement dollars, I'll give it to you. No, I said, for sure. They're interested in it. But I think it's also been uniquely, this was developed as I sat in those meetings that Farron facilitated, just listening to people and the issues that they're seeing as issues in our community. So it may be unique to us, it may not be unique to us, but there have been other communities that have asked for this to take to their leadership. So,
Jordan,
Sheriff,
I
do you
think
have
it-
anything to add to this?
I think there's a lot of that money that was gathered just down the other day. They're discussing treatment options for that stays happening. So there's some options there for you.
I think it looks like a great plan, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Well,
you. Oh, go ahead.
I don't have any more chances to say this. Jordan, thank you, and I just need to publicly recognize you and the health department. It's been phenomenal for 4 years. I mean, we've got a couple jewels in the community. The health department's one, and we're very fortunate to have you, so thank you very much.
Agreed. Okay, thank you, Jordan.
All right, we'll bring back, we will bring back how we propose to split up that funding and what the actual cost will be.
Okay.
So, switch hats, emissions. I'm gonna ask John or Grant to come up just in case there's questions I can't answer. Our Board of Health, can we pass these down? Our Board of Health had a auto shop from our valley come to us and say, I'd like to speak to the board about the emissions fee that they're allowed to charge to the public for the cost of performing the emissions test. And they came and presented and presented to the board. I put in that packet some of the reasons for it. Basically, since 2013, am I right? 2014, that has been a static fee. And just like all of us, their costs have gone up. That was the primary case that they made. You've given us a static fee, but our cost to continue to administer this goes up, and we're not able to cover our costs. They They also presented what other counties have done. Many of the counties other than Weber have chosen to allow the market to dictate what that fee would be. That is the proposal that we took back to the Board of Health, is to allow the market to dictate that. These shops, and I need to qualify this, they were not a representative sample of shops, but they were very comfortable with the fact that they could allow, that would give them the flexibility to cover their costs, and if they were too high, they could go someplace else. But the board, we just went through a public hearing process where the board heard that suggestion. They have not formally acted on it. They tabled it, waiting for other input on other fees other than this. They will make a determination on December 14th, but the public hearing has been held, and right now the recommendation is to move the emissions fee to a market-based fee rather than being set statically. And just so everyone's aware of what the process is, the board approves, I'm going to say this wrong, Jonathan. The Board of Health recommends a fee, and then the county council approves that fee. Am I right? I believe so. Yeah. So that's the process because it is tied to a county ordinance. But right now, my sense from the Board of Health is that they would move forward with a formal recommendation on December 14th. So what I'm coming to you before now is, please, if you have any thoughts or concerns, let me hear them so I can take them back to them before they make a formal vote on that.
Jordan, have they thought of having a cap at all? Like you could go up to a certain amount, but...
So, no, to answer your question, they kind of went off of what I pulled from the DMV, and then Jonathan went and got this updated information from you. That's where the market-based fees have kind of landed the range that you've seen. And the only one we don't have is Weber Morgan, but they still are a static fee, correct? So I guess, Gina, my only thought on a cap, here's the beauty of allowing the market to do it. We never have to address the fee again. If we cap it, one day we may get to the place where we're like, oh, we got to move the cap. And so it's just a matter of whether or not we want to get in the business of capping and then moving the cap. But I guess that'd be my only downside to capping it, is one day I might be back before our council asking for you to remove the cap.
So have you looked at the different counties, if they're on a market, how many emissions testings are there per capita? Does that drive anything that way? Do you see what I mean?
We haven't looked at it. I get what you're saying, like how many are they doing per pop?
Competitive it is. I mean, it would be interesting to know that, or to see where we're at here, because the less you have, the more the market is driven by those less institutions who can test. So
Yeah.
that would be interesting in understanding that from my side.
The other question I had was, all of these comparisons are Class 1 and Class 2 counties. Heavily populated counties. Was there any research done in, say, Washington County or Summit County or other counties like this?
So the reason we can't do the research in those counties is because they are not emission counties. These counties are the only ones that, and us are the only ones that have emission programs. Does that make sense? So Washington County and Summit County are not subject to the state implementation plan for PM 2.5. Am I misspeaking at all, Grant? And so I'm new to the emissions things too. I came from a county that didn't have emissions. So we can't pull from counties that don't have the data. That's what I'm saying.
I was just thinking here, as we've been discussing this, that Gina mentioned a cap. I'm not so sure that I'm not for a cap. Let's set the cap, which is realistic, and then if it progresses to the point that we need to visit the cap, I don't think it's any problem coming back and visiting with us.
Yeah,
I get more concerned about people being gouged than I do about you coming back and asking for more.
that's fair.
And that could be a point, but I think anytime you look at any market, the government hasn't interfered with, prices are continually driven down based on competition, where any market that the government is involved, you see huge price increases, so.
Well,
I'm more of a free market, you know, and if you can get somebody to come in and maybe we start to get mobile testing and things that would drive down that price, I think, open it
I
up.
think setting a cap too will simply set the rate. I mean, everybody will probably charge up to the cap.
I'm sure they would. You put a cap on it and that's the price. But you know, the ones that don't have a cap are
And if people
higher
start,
than the others.
and if people start to get gouged, we can come back and put in a cap, but I'd be willing to bet it's hard to gouge somebody that can go down the street, and they're not gouging them on gas.
We are looking to change our ordinance, the same meeting, and David, if you want to chime in at all, the same meeting that we had, the board heard from an individual where we're the only county that doesn't do tailpipe testing. We just do it on through the computer system of the car. There is a potential company interested in coming in and doing mobile testing. So no brick and mortar. You can call them, come to your house, come to your business, whatever, to be able to do that, get you registered and on your way. So we are looking to change our ordinance that would allow for that. Right now, our ordinance doesn't allow for that. But we've been instructed by the board to look at some changes and bring that back to them. So that could also keep people from unintentionally being gouged. So.
Okay. You're looking for a recommendation then, Jordan?
Yeah, give me any direction you want me to take back to the Board of Health.
Okay.
Me or David. David's on the board.
All right. Any comments now that you would like to give to Jordan to take back?
You want us to explore a cap?
I think I'd just be in favor of letting the market set the rate.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
Okay.
Any other?
I think that as soon as you set the cap, that will be the rate. No one's gonna go under the cap. That'll just
Right.
be the given rate.
It'll be a set fee, there's no
Yeah,
doubt.
Even though they can do it cheaper, that'll be the set fee.
Mhm.
So let the market take care of it.
Okay.
Okay.
But as long as we don't start tightening up all the requirements for that market to where they have to pay so much more in machinery costs and everything
I think,
that the community.
and feel free to jump in, I think my staff's done a good job of actually bringing down that cost with the vendor that they brought in, with no requirement for the tailpipe testing. The overall cost for if you want to speak to it, you can, but the overall cost for the shops has been coming down. Grant, am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So we're trying our best to make sure that, and that was through an open RFP for a new vendor. When did we change the vendor? October 2020. So we have been actively pursuing ways to bring that cost down.
Awesome.
So
All right. Any more questions or comments for Jordan?
I do have one
Thank you.
more question. And
Okay.
it's for John. Where the question came to me, where we had the public hearing for the fee, does it go through a public hearing for a fee here?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay. We just wanted to know logistics, because our meeting is on December 14th, but we would like this to be active with the rest of our fees by January 1 of 2023.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to think logistically how to make that happen. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. All right. It is estimated 5:30 for a public hearing, so we'll jump to 9A from that and come back to Sheriff Jensen. We are asked to set a public hearing for November 8th, 2022 at 6:00 PM for Resolution 2022-30, a resolution adopting the 2023 Cache County budget.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we set that public hearing for November 8th, 2022 at 6:00 PM, a resolution adopting the 2023 Cache County budget. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. All right, we'll go back up to 6B. Sheriff? Thank you for being here.
Tell you what, I got to compliment, Sheriff, I got to compliment your barber and George's barber. I really need to go in and get a cut.
Well, you know, not everybody can have a head like that. Saturday night.
Yeah.
Mine's Sunday morning. Well, thank you. I appreciate you giving me tonight, where I missed it last week. It's just a bad timing with fall break and stuff. But I want to recognize a couple of our staff today for some great works they do. We have such a great office. We do great things every single day. All the staff do. But there's a couple that happened last year that particularly stick out. And if I can have Sergeant Tim Ramirez and Mike Richardson come up front. They were recently recognized at the Utah Sheriff's Association for the Medal of Valor statewide. And they both got this plaque. I'll let Mike hold that. And if I can, I'd just like to read the letters that we submitted on their behalf that they were awarded from. So this one's for Sergeant Tim Ramirez. On April 19, 2022, Sergeant Tim Ramirez led his crew in the apprehension of an armed robbery suspect. This apprehension involved a pursuit, an officer-involved shooting, and life-saving care of the offender. While on patrol, a call came out of an armed invasion, home invasion robbery in Wellsville. The offender had entered a home armed with a rifle and stole the minivan. The vehicle was spotted by deputies a short time later, and a pursuit was initiated. As the primary pursuit unit, Sergeant Ramirez set clear guidelines for the other responding deputies to set up a successful interdiction. He knew he was pursuing an armed offender, but was unaware that the offender had been involved in an incident earlier in Box Elder County where shots had been fired at another person. When the pursuit came to a halt on a dead-end road, the suspect lunged from the vehicle armed with a rifle. Sergeant Ramirez, fearing for the safety of his fellow law enforcement personnel and citizens of our county, responded with gunfire. Sergeant Ramirez's actions placed himself in a situation that was clearly dangerous, as the subject has previously fired shots at others. Sergeant Ramirez then approached the offender and administered emergency medical treatment until medical units arrived. One of the primary duties of the Cache County Sheriff's Office, as defined by our mission statement, is community protection. Sergeant Ramirez's actions demonstrated accomplishing the mission of the Cache County Sheriff's Office and also met the highest law enforcement duties to safeguard life. So, thank you, Tim. And, Deputy Mike Richardson. Again, on April 22nd, 2022, Deputy Richardson was the secondary unit involved in the apprehension of an armed robbery suspect. The apprehension involved a pursuit, an officer-involved shooting, and life-saving care of the offender. While on patrol, a call came out of an armed home invasion robbery. The offender had entered a home armed with a rifle and stole the minivan. The vehicle was spotted by deputies a short time later, and the pursuit was initiated. Deputy Richardson was the secondary unit in the pursuit and knew he was pursuing an armed offender, but was unaware that the offender had been involved in an incident earlier in Box Elder County where shots had been fired at another person. When the pursuit came to an end on a dead-end dirt road, Deputy Richardson realized there was a home within close proximity where the suspect came to a stop. Realizing the danger to the family within the home, he placed his vehicle between the suspect and the home. His action involved placing himself in a situation that was clearly dangerous, as the suspect had previously fired shots at other people. Deputy Richardson approached the offender and aided in administering medical treatment until medical units could arrive. One of the primary duties of the Cache County Sheriff's Office, as defined by our mission statement, is community protection. Deputy Richardson's actions demonstrated demonstrated accomplishing the mission of the Cache County Sheriff's Office, also met the highest standards of law enforcement duty is the protection of others. So with that, thank you both very much. These are a couple great things, and we don't have these cases like this very often in our county. And it goes to show that our training and our tactics and the dedication of all of our staff, given we don't do these very often, is outstanding. They're recognized as just a few in the state last year who received the sheriff's commendation. So thank you guys very much for the way you represented yourself and our office and all of our deputies. Amazing work. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you. On behalf of the council, I always have a hard time with these because I really appreciate everything that these guys do for our community. And on behalf of the council, thank you. We appreciate you, so thanks. All right. All right, next item, approval of a 2022 Council of Governments project recommendations. Mayor Craig Hidalgo, please.
Madam Chair and the council, I appreciate the opportunity to come and give you a report on what we as a Cache County Council of Governments worked on for the COG for this year and approved. As an introduction, my name is Craig Hidalgo. I currently serve as a mayor in Clarkston. I'm in my second term. I've served for nearly 9 years with the COG as a council member and as a mayor. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for this organization I work with. As a way of an introduction as well, last year we received a record high of a budget of approximately $5.7 million. This year we broke that record with a budget of $7.7 million. So it was another record year for funding. We also had a record for projects this year. Normally we get 7 or 8. This year we had a total of 19. We disqualified one because they hadn't held a public hearing before deadline of receipt of the proposal. 2 others were disqualified after the presentations because we realized after the presentations that they were asking for reimbursement, and the executive committee felt like that would be a dangerous precedent to set if we allowed that to happen. So they were disqualified. Then Hyde Park voluntarily pulled one of their projects to allow funding to go elsewhere. Our focus this year, as we went through our presentation, was focused on when they could do the projects, if they were ready to start right now. We didn't want to continue to build a backlog of projects. We tested them out for the remaining 15 projects was $9.9 million, which is about $2 million more than we had. So as you can see, we went through our rankings. I think you all have the rankings in your packets and are familiar with what they have. And I don't know if any of you went out and reviewed any of the presentations. We did very well with the presentations. It took us about 2 hours to go through them, but we went through them all and asked a lot of questions. And I was very impressed with how each of the municipalities' leaders, a lot of them went out and viewed where these projects were at to make sure they understood them and could vote well on them and understood what they were voting on. After the voting, we came back last night and met as a council. And we had a motion that was hit right off the bat by Councilmember Zook recommending that following changes were to be made. Nibley graciously gave up their Phase 5 and Logan City's 100 North, 600 West intersection design project was withdrawn because they didn't feel like they could work with what they had, what they were going to get. Hiram City's project, as a result, Hiram City's project was fully funded. Trenton's project was fully funded, where they were going to have to come up with some additional funds. And Amalga was willing to adjust their project so that they could use the rest of the money. In all, on the vote for this, it was 16-0, so it was unanimous that the funding, the motion was accepted. I appreciated the collaboration that took place on the Cache County Council of Governments. It's pretty unique, I think, in this day and age, in what we witness in politics, to see municipalities come together the way the COG does. And I have witnessed that in every year I've served on there. They don't take lightly what they do, yet they try to be as fair as they can be. So I hope that the council, Cache County Council, will agree with the COG, that we've done our due diligence in fairly accounting for and allocating the funds, and I hope that you'll support us on these. Any questions?
I just have one question, Mayor Hidalgo, on that Logan, the 10th North and 6th West intersection. You say that they do not need additional money for that, but they can go ahead with what they have planned with it. Is that my right understanding on that?
And I defer to Jesse on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Councilwoman, Council Chair, when some of the projects, when Nibley withdrew their application with a partial funding, that pushed some of the funds down. That allowed Hiram to receive be fully funded, and that gave Logan City about $60,000.
Oh, okay.
So Logan City decided, with the scope of their project, $60,000, when they're looking at an engineering bid about $850, wasn't worth trying to contract for such a small amount, and they didn't feel like they had time to pull other funds to be able to fund that project. So then they said, we'll pull our application as well, and allowed those funds to continue down and fund other projects as a result of that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question for you. On
Yes.
the local match and so forth, I know in the past, I think I've asked this question, but those city councils are aware of these projects and what match their city has agreed to give. Is that right?
Yes,
Thank you.
that is correct.
Perfect. Great.
They have to hold a public hearing and be fully engaged in what's going forth. Part of the reason for Cornish withdrawing was because they hadn't had a chance to discuss with their council of what they were, and he didn't want to descope any of his project without first doing that, so he passed on it.
Great. Thank you.
Another question on the Logan 700 South, 100 East. Is that due to that new intersection that's coming in on that?
Yeah, that is
Big
part of that
signal.
intersection, isn't it?
So that is the intersection behind Conservice.
Okay.
So it's an existing intersection.
Oh, okay.
There's some pedestrian traffic there due to Conservice having buildings kind of on both sides of
Okay.
that'd be 100 East. And I do believe in 2019 or around that time, there was a fatality at the intersection. So
okay.
that's been on Logan's list for a while and just seeking some funds to do
Okay.
a signal there.
Thank you. Thanks.
So the road comes out of River Heights.
Yes, right. Okay. All right, any other questions for the mayor? All right, he's asking for an approval of this.
I move approval of the 2022 Council of Governments project recommendations. As presented.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the recommendation of the 2022 Council of Governments project recommendations. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, Matt, you're going to talk to us about a request for a 25% match for FEMA Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant.
I think we're going to have some people leaving, so while they're leaving.
Okay.
So they can, but they're all here for you. No, I'm hoping more than they leave.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Madam Chair, Council. I've been working with Alma, our grants manager, to look for some funding, and so I'm here for a couple of
things. One of them is to get approval for an application to submit for a grant, just kind of a general approval. And the second one is, as part of that application, similar to requests last month from Public Works and earlier from Fairgrounds, is that we need a letter from the council chair committing the county to the 25%. So just a little about the grant. This is from FEMA. Basically, the Department of Homeland Security puts that money down to FEMA, and it's flood mitigation assistance. And so in that whole pot of money, national-wide, there's probably $1 billion. So out of that $1 billion, each state is allocated $900,000 to help with local. So this grant we're going after is not looking for federal. We're not going at a federal level to compete. We're going to a state level to compete. And so that's $900,000 that the state gets. Right now, we're the only applicant. So we don't feel like we have the budget or the resources to go for a whole lot of money, but we felt like we had the resources and probably the budget to go after $100,000. So we're just trying to break off a small chunk of a project that we can manage, that we can, and try to get more flood assistance. And under flood assistance, if you wanted to build a new building, you could. If you had some damage from floods, ours is actually under a project scoping. So what we're doing is going out and studying a floodplain, studying some kind of a wetland area, and trying to find out what are our needs here, how can we be proactive. And so when we looked around the valley and tried to find something that fit our scoping requirements, we come with the diagram that I turned out to you guys of this map of the Hiram Slough. This was not studied as part of the recent FEMA upgrades, so the studies that they're currently getting ready to release next month ended at the Hiram city limits for the Hiram Slough. So this will study the Hiram Slough all the way through the unincorporated part of the county to 3200 West down in College Ward, kind of right before it starts to get into the Logan floodplain. So, and it will actually probably study part of Spring Creek that comes down that way too. So that's what the map is I passed out, is just kind of to give you guys an area of what we're studying. That study should include some of the irrigation, some of the undercrossings, but when we looked at where we're getting a lot of development, where we're getting land uses, and we don't have any mapped information, we felt like this was a good area. So going back to my opening statement, is we're kind of looking to see, to get support that, hey, yeah, this looks like something that would be good for the county. We don't oppose it, and kind of give us the green light to go apply for this grant funding. And if we're able to get that, then we're asking for the match amount. And so we're asking for $100,000 for this grant. We feel like that's enough money to study the area in detail. There is like a $5,000 administrative part that goes on that, so the total grant request is $105,000. Our portion of that match is $26,250. Yeah, $26,250. And that can be cash, material, or services. So if we can provide some additional engineering services, if we can provide some kind of survey work on our own, if we can do some GIS mapping, whatever the county can do on their own is also counted as part of that match. It doesn't just have to be a straight cash. So the other good thing to note is that this is a 3-year or 36-month window from project start to project end. So this is not a $26,000 next year to the fiscal budget or to our budget. It's basically 3 years. We would assume closer to 2 years, but you do have 3 years for this project cycle. So, any questions?
The letter to Kathy Holder says that funds will be from non-federal funds from the county sales tax revenue.
And that's basically where most of the public works funds come through, is some type of sales tax. So again, if we wanted to work with Chair to
modify this. There is a couple little things we're planning on modifying. The Hiram Slough is not in Hiram, or at least the part we're not studying. So this is just kind of a draft of what's been prepared in the past, so.
Okay, I'm sorry. When do you need this letter approved?
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
If you noticed how Bart came in and asked for this, and then they gave another little delay, and then we came in again. This one, working with the state, working with our consultants and saying that, hey, they have $900,000 that no one has applied for. The state's been pretty lenient on those deadlines, so.
All right. So council,
I have a question.
yes.
Okay.
So what, I mean, as you look at Cache County, you got Little Bear, you got Logan River, you got the Bear River and everything else. Of all of those, this is where they felt the study was the most impact?
We picked that. So between myself, the consultant, and looking at what parts had been studied, and being able to get, like, say, Hiram Slough studied through this area. We have the Western Arterial that's proposed in this area. We have a lot of impacts on 1500 South. We have, Millers, the guy just passed away, so who knows what's gonna happen with their land. But with Gordon here knowing this area, if we don't think this is a good area to spend some time and effort to study, in our opinion, it was. There's a high density, a lot of development pressure. There's, high classification of roads. This would also incorporate the study area of where we recently had some fatality. So we've tried to find a spot in the valley where we're getting the most bang for our buck with a lot of the issues that we're facing.
It's definitely one of the areas where the county is growing very rapidly, and you get out in that area.
Yeah.
Keep driving around and thinking, my word, I used to hunt pheasants now it's got multiple housing high-rises on it and stuff. I just shake my head.
Nolan, if we had more time and money, we could sit and do these one after another. But this was a good opportunity. We feel like our chances are good, and it was just enough of a bite of an apple that we figured we could manage it. So.
Matt, you mentioned other services other than cash.
Yeah.
How would you implement those?
I just want you guys to be aware of, if it's got approved, then we'll start working out some of those details with the state and what they'll allow and what those fees would be. It could be our road department could provide some services of, some monitoring, go out and do some field data assessment, anything that we can provide. I just wanted you guys to be aware that it doesn't directly have to be just cash. We might be able to find some other grants or other avenues to also provide, as long as it's not federal money, and we can't use other federal money for our match, so it has to be in kind or cash from some other location than federal.
Good.
I think we could probably trade a lot of engineering in kind to go towards this. We got an engineer that's not very busy, and so's a result.
You pass his name along, Gordon. I want to talk to him.
You could bail that out in a week.
Yeah. There is some state opportunities that they'll give you some of these mitigations, so that wouldn't be federal money. So we have some time to try to dig in and find. Again, that's why we're not asking for $500,000 or $600,000, because we feel like that's a number that we can spread out through the engineering budget the next few years. We're not going to put a big burden on our budget, but we're getting something good for the community. So.
Very good.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, so recommendation?
I would recommend to the council that we authorize Attorney Luthi to write a letter and tell the state that we're interested and that this is the project, and we feel it'd be very beneficial to Cache County to go ahead and pursue it.
Would it be John that would write the letter, or would it be Alma?
John could review the letter. Alma usually reviews them, and
okay.
Really we need Barbara to sign it. So.
Okay, all right. Very good.
So does that approve the match?
Yes.
The possible match?
Yes,
Okay.
the possible. And I'm guessing that we have as much as 3 years, probably in increments, to get it to the state.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be a real large burden on any.
It depends on how long you drag your project out. So, right, if you want to try to get your project done in a couple of years, which is probably like what I would anticipate it taking, then once you submit all those in for reimbursement, that's when you're going to have to pay yours. So if you wanted to drag it out to 3 years, you could. But.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the request for 25% match for a FEMA flood mitigation assistance grant.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Matt.
Barbara, thank you, council.
All right, we have Sean up next, a request for direction regarding state agency questions.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Should I be successful, this will be the quickest appearance I have before you.
Okay.
Never heard that?
He's got a good run to go.
What was that? Okay. Well, now I'm all afluster. Okay, so I have two questions that have been.
He said something, we've never seen so much hair on you before.
I'm doing some training and conditioning. No Shave November is coming up, and since I have some lazy hair follicles, I thought I'd train them early. So, the state office, Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, has asked two questions following the council's direction at the recent meeting that we had that I submitted the grant. So they acknowledged that they got it. I got the confirmation email. And so there were two questions asked of me, and I think I know the answer on the first, but I didn't want to presume too much on the second. I could sure use your direction and clarification. So regarding the increased regional collaboration of economic development activities and partnership between Cache, Box Elder, and Rich counties and the Bear River Association of Governments, or BRAG, A, who will the fiscal agent responsible for contracts, payments, and reporting to Cache County's portion of the funding be? I assume that the idea would be that it'd still be me, but I, again, didn't want to presume. And B, what is the planned effective date of the proposed partnership? So I did not know the answer to that, and they are seeking an answer fairly quickly so that I can report back to them. And they have a new committee that they had not previously had in the two rounds. So they being staff, have opposed these questions so that they can get back to the advisory committee, and that's what I'm seeking your advice on tonight.
Council questions, comments?
What was the first question again?
Who would be the reporting party? So as I fill out the application, there's a primary and secondary point of contact, and for the last two cycles, I've put myself as primary and Alma Burgess as secondary. But whoever would be doing the reporting on, you get this award, and then there's a report due, and you must have the report turned in before you can apply for the next round. And so that has been me for the last couple of cycles, and I assume that you would envision the same sort of thing.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think Sean ought to continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a date that we want to?
Well, I think we're having a meeting at Bragg with the other counties Thursday.
Tomorrow.
Or tomorrow, is it tomorrow?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And we'll know more then, but I anticipate, based on preliminary conversations, it's probably effective 1/1, but during budget years. That would be my guess, but at this point in time, they're just preliminary discussions until we finalize stuff. Bragg tomorrow.
What do you look at? What date were you looking at, Sean?
Oh, no, I don't want the tables turned on this one.
Okay.
But I did tell them that, because they actually asked for this by last Friday, and I said, well, I think that's a little early for me. There's a council meeting next week, and then there's a Bragg governing board the day after.
Okay.
Any chance I could postpone my response? And she said, yes, but please, ASAP. So
Okay.
my general feel from that dialogue is that by week's end, I owe them an answer.
We should know from our meeting tomorrow, and
So
so I think by week's end would be fine.
So if the council's comfortable, Carl, and I can pass that date along to Sean, well, you'll be at the meeting, and so we can just pass the date
Okay.
that we agree on.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So technically speaking, I can respond and let her know that I should be able to fulfill this request by end of week, and that because the full council won't be at the Bragg meeting, Madam Chair, would you like me to reach out to you for some sort of vote? I know that there have been some reservations by others expressed in the past of a vote by email, but I just want to make sure that I'm above board and doing as the council would request.
We can't vote by email.
No.
Well, I mean, if you would just want to vote tonight to say whatever we decide at Bragg, the council will take that.
Depending upon that.
Okay.
Make a motion as such.
Okay.
Do you think it would be January 1st, though, based on your discussions with the other
Based
two
on all the
counties?
preliminary discussions we've had so far, I wouldn't.
Not earlier.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just because they have to finalize their budgets and we're finalizing our budget.
Okay. Motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request as presented here regarding the state agency questions. And dependent on the meeting Wednesday, tomorrow, that we go ahead and approve as discussed.
Would it be fair to say, Councilman, that the tentative date pending approval is January 1, 2023?
Yeah, let's say that.
Okay.
And that the person that will fill out the reports will be
You.
Sean.
You. Yeah.
Okay, copy that, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, very good. Moved and seconded that we will go ahead and approve the request for direction regarding these state agency questions by Sean being the contact person and answering, and that the date, depending on, but looking pretty favorable for tomorrow's meeting, will be January 1st, 2023. Is that correct? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
is that good for you, Sean?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Council, I appreciate that. Janine, what is the official record? Out before 5 minutes, right?
Okay, very good. Awesome. All right, let's move on to pending action. Well, we have no Board of Equalization.
Bart Nelson.
I'm sorry, Bart, I almost skipped over you. No. Okay, Bart, please come on up. Information technology, and you did such a nice presentation, too. We can't skip over that.
You need some help with the technology?
Boy, if we get there, we have gotten so far afield, it's not even funny.
So you do have this in your packets, obviously, and you can
Yes.
follow along there if it's a little hard to read. This is my yearly department report. That's my name, that's my title. I thought I'd throw a little humor, which is really a risky move for an IT guy, right? So anyway, this is what LinkedIn said the top cringeworthy award IT phrases were. So the top one I just kind of read and said, technology plays an important role in society today. Well, duh. Unprecedented times. I'm not sure that's an IT term, but basically I think we're in them at this point. Leading edge, I promise not to say that, or world class, or forget about anything, okay? I added the sixth one because I'm going to attempt to do this without a lot of acronyms, all right?
Wonderful.
All right. So this doesn't change too much year over year, except the very specifics, but these are the things that IT does. This is the brick and mortar, and I've done an accordion presentation, so you can almost stop it after this slide anytime you get bored with all of my hot air. Day-to-day tech support, compute and network infrastructure is our servers, our storage, our networks, the wiring, the desktops, everything that keeps the county running and the people productive. Help desk application, and when I say application, we're talking more at the user level on that particular point. And the phone system, so that is our day-to-day, what we try to keep running in a nutshell, which includes your tablets and everything else that we run in the county. Dozens of applications, I've never counted them, it might be 100, but dozens works. The first one I list there, and they are kind of in an order, is tax roll. First and foremost, we're a property entity, right? So the tax roll, little history lesson, 20 years ago, the tax roll system that we run today was born in Cache County, developed here. We are the original owners of the best tax roll system in the state of Utah, and maybe the country, actually. 7 years ago, I was brought in to perpetuate that even further, 7.5-ish maybe, and build a team around that and keep that in-house. And I'll tell you, it was probably one of the wisest decisions the county has ever made, because the other counties that have other tax roll systems that strive to be as good as ours will never catch up, and we'll continue to outpace them and stay ahead of them. Core is an appendage of tax roll. That's one that I brought in. That is the serving the data to the public. We're about almost 5 years into Core. I was asked to estimate what it would take to take that away from an entity that was serving it in the valley. I said it'll take us about $500,000, and we should be able to recoup that in 5 years. I'm here to report we did that in 4 years, a year early, and now we have reached just past the break-even point of Core as far as what we've put into it. From here on out, it helps IT keep maintaining that. It's not, we're not going to do Core away or anything, but basically now it will begin paying for itself.
Bart, what does CORE stand for those who aren't familiar with it?
Cache Online Records Express, and you can go to core.cachecounty.org, and there are 2 segments to Core. The free public segment, which everybody can look up basic taxation information on your property, and then there's a paid component to Core that's deep into the over 5 million documents and supporting pictures and things. So in order to, that's the paid part of Core. In order to provide that to realtors, title companies, and the people that really need that deep access in, we're a subscription-based entity, and we do have a daily license that people can buy.
Thanks.
Puma is a up-and-coming thing. It is actually the assessment, online cloud-based assessment role. And I put it right after Core because we've done those functions in Core up to this point. Puma is a UAC MCAT application development group that came out of our friends at UAC. And it does things in the cloud, and it does things a little bit better than we can do them. And we don't premiere in Core or into the tax roll what they can do. So we're working in conjunction with them to marry that tightly with our tax roll, which we're about the only county that's attempting to do that, by the way. Other counties are keeping Puma as a kind of a separate, less integrated system. We're going to take it all on and bring it in as kind of part of ours and be a cloud-based appendage to our tax roll. HRIS is just another example of the hundreds of applications, and Amy, that's the HR system that Amy runs. Off-the-shelf, in-house is a decision we make with every single program we look at or bring into the county. We have taken a lot of them that were in-house and gone to commercial-based products. We do that on a case-by-case basis, wherever it makes sense. So we're not all about keeping the applications and everything as something that Cache County develops and owns. We just try to make it work where it makes sense. Department and event support, and you can stop me with questions at any time. Obviously, we're county-wide. We put in a lot of procedures where we support departments and work with them for new hires, for training, for the stuff that they need from an IT. In fact, we put a policy in about 3 years ago saying we want people, when they bring a new hire in, to add about $2,000 that is IT related, because that person needs a PC. This is a new seat, not somebody replacing an existing one. That person needs a PC, they need a phone, they need all this stuff, and in the past, IT was just asked to eat that, and it really made it hard to budget. So now we ask the departments to plan for that cost and not make IT have to eat that. Building and startup, the brighter line is what we're doing and have done this year. The animal shelter, obviously. What's really developed over time, and why I really put this bullet point on for building startup, is IT is at the table as we start talking about buildings now. In the past, it's let's build a building and then, oh, halfway through, what are we going to need for IT? The road shop we did last year down in Hiram's a great example. There's more conduit and fiber and connectivity on that campus than any of our other buildings. In fact, the room that we sit in here is a nightmare for IT. I can't get wire behind the walls. I can't do things here. Putting this room together like we did 4 years ago was one of the hardest projects we've done here, just because of the nature of the building. If you think about IT as you build a building, the IT work is easy later. If you build a building and then think about IT, you've got a lot more pain points. So cybersecurity will always be on my list. It is not on the bottom for any particular reason, because it probably is our top priority. Keeping the networks, the systems, everything secure in the county has to be a top priority. Otherwise, and we've had a couple of breaches over the years, and how you maintain breaches is you keep the things on that first line. You keep your people trained, you have endpoint protection, and you back up and you prepare for a disaster, because it's coming. Questions on that slide? That's the meat of the presentation. This is the accordion part. Here's kind of, and I've color-coded them, the big accomplishments that we did last year into this year, and then a couple of pain points. And I can stop here, or I can touch on individual points, or I can just keep going through the presentation. I probably won't be another 10 minutes. Keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. County website. I'm sure you've all been to the county website. Those two little squares on the lower right are tiles. We went with a 9-tile grid that's popularity based. As people hit our sites, you'll notice the tile on the left has a little push pin on it. That one is pinned because the treasurers come to us and said, as we pay property taxes, don't care about popularity. I want to be tile number 1. We pin it for them. The other one, news. I guess we've been in the news a lot lately because there's a hit count on the lower right there. And the more hits that we get from unique people, you can't just get your friends to just sit and reload. From unique people and IP addresses, we actually, the most popular stuff filters to the top, and it's been very, very well received. We put in a search engine that could probably rival Google's search engine, and that's what we basically patterned it after. In fact, we've had some people that have called because they can't get out of the mindset of the old website that was find your stuff and navigate to it, to put your stuff up in a search bar. A lady called and said, I can't find anything on the airport. Did you put airport up in the search bucket? Airport, she's done, she's happy. We've become very search-centric, and that's what we want to be, because searching is the way to find things, not navigating until you find something that looks like it has a clue to what you're looking for. Very mobile-friendly. In the past, our website did not look good on a phone. This year, we've changed that. The tile structure lines up in a vertical column, and it just scrolls nicely instead of trying to scrunch down onto the format of a phone.
Your department's built.
Yes, we chose not to. We've talked about it about a half dozen times since I've been here, about yearly, whether we should outsource our websites and our web development. And we've seen what's happened to UAX. I don't know if you have, and other people that we've watched some people outsource and not been very impressed with the results. So we have 2 web developers that helped with this, and they do other things. They develop Core. Core is a web-based application. They develop a lot of our internal stuff as we go into appraisal season. Amy owns the appraisal framework, if you will, and we develop applications to fit that need. It's all in-house, custom built for Cache County. Hits the bullseye of the target, and I haven't bought a bloated commercial application that does 99 things that we don't care about.
I think that's important for the council to know after working for the last 4 years and seeing, this kind of thing, how integral Bart's been and what he's done, and going outside of his department seems to be a fool's errand for the most parts.
Thank you for the kind remarks. Very responsive, very well-performing application. The content owners own the content, and they make the changes. So we've trained all the departments that are willing. We're still working on some of that. But basically, if there's a content problem, it's not an IT call anymore. It's a sheriff's office or HR or whoever that department page is to fix your content. IT will help you and will train you, but it's self-sufficient for the departments, which helps my staff, helps relieve some of the strain on them. Next product I was going to talk about was CDOC. I don't know, everybody in here probably remembers the SIRE systems and on-base systems and how difficult they were to use. We have gotten very, very high remarks on how well we have integrated into all the county applications, made a really easy product to use. If you want to search for a contract now, it's not painful. You talk to that content owner once again. If the second line from the bottom talks about performance, but really it's about role management and access control. Departments own certain parts of data and they can share or not with others. We built this whole role-based application for just to access CDOC and other applications that allow individuals or groups access to all the data they need, but restrict those that don't need it. So it's on an as-needed basis. It's really cool. We also saved $24,000 in annual savings, so there's a perpetual savings till the end of time, as long as we keep CDOC running. I think that helps pay for some of the personnel and helps us make a product worth keeping. Another thing, if you buy a commercial application and ask them to make a change, they'll laugh you out of the room. We welcome that. We embrace that. We want this thing to do what the county needs it to do and nothing else until you ask for more functionality. Backup and DR, I could talk about this one for an hour, but I'll give it 2 seconds. Unitrends really dropped the ball on us. We bought a product in January. I'm sure y'all remembered. I came in and we talked about money and what a crisis I was in. The Unitrends, we got it here, and the first thing we did was notice that it wouldn't back up our Novell file systems. So we contacted the vendor, who waited for that moment to tell us that they dropped support for that product. Well, that's 50% of our data we can no longer back up. So I have fought tooth and nail to get them to take that product back and not cost us a dime and pick up the next line down, ArcServe, which is a product that does. The financing style changed a little bit. The Unitrends was more on a 60-month cloud-based month-to-month subscription. We love this new appliance. It's very much a capital asset. They want all the money up front, so we managed that budget without having to come to council and bought a capital-based backup system, and we're happy that we did that. There is a learning curve. We've put a lot of time in. There's some technical paradigm shifts in there. It just does things differently. It does things more efficiently, better compression, better deduplication, so a much smaller footprint, but a whole big learning curve for my team, and we've really embraced that and made it work. It's now a functional system, and the county was never not protected with backup and disaster recovery. I want to make that clear, but we're better off today than when we went into this nightmare that turned out to be. But it has a happy ending. Now I'll talk about a couple of pain points. I'm sure you've all heard about the supply chain. You just can't buy anything anymore, and what you can buy is junk, or it's 3 times what it used to cost you. For an example, we had a network refresh of this building. I mentioned the wiring and stuff. This building really needs a refresh because it's hard to do, and therefore you don't do it very often. We ordered switches in December through Hewlett-Packard and Cache Valley Electric, and some of the gear trickled throughout the spring, and we just today, that line up until today said we haven't received the gear yet, but we got the last piece of gear today from an order from December. We will now aggressively try to put that in. But that's indicative of what the supply chain is. The next one down, same, we buy a lot of Hewlett-Packard gear. It's very common. We buy it through Cache Valley Electric. They ordered Wi-Fi equipment at the same basic time that we bought it, and most of their gear is back ordered through early 2023 in the February timeframe. It's a crisis, and it really is. Monitors that were costing me about $100 have now about doubled, $150 to $200. And they've dropped the warranties down to a year where I used to be able to get 3. They're just playing all kinds of supply chain games on us, but we're managing. We'll navigate through it. I did want to put, this is more on a personal level, that bottom line. All electronics right now are affected. People, as the floodgates open up, people are putting out less quality. So just be careful and scrutinize what's available out there if you're personally buying laptops or PCs or whatever. Make sure you're buying brand name, because everybody else is flooding with companies just using really low grade consumer type components that you want to stay away from. So just, I'm more than glad to talk to you, put my other hat on and tell you whether something's a spoof or a good deal, anytime. Personnel, I was hoping that this week we'd be able to say we're fully staffed. We had a person back out. So we did manage to hire that top bullet, Tech 1, in April. And that was good because that was about a 9-month effort to bring her in, Karen, if you haven't met her yet. We had a lot of applicants and almost none qualified because it is an entry-level position. The background checks scared a lot off, eliminated a few, but we did manage to fill that position. And in late June, we got a resignation notice from one of our techs at the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office only has 3 employees down there to begin with. One of them is a manager like me, a working manager that gets their hands dirty and actually plugs things together and makes things work, so not purely administrative. So there's 2 techs and a manager that's pretty tech down there. But when you lose one person, and we have a person in training this week, so I've got a one-man shop down there, and that little mini bullet says we'll help each other in a crisis, but they're different worlds down there. The IT world for sheriff's office is a lot different than the IT world for the tax roll side. So we are trying to bring another person on. We may have a chance with this applicant. Amy has worked so hard, and I appreciate her efforts so much. But it's been challenging. The few applicants that we've had lately have gotten all the way through the deep law enforcement-based background check and backed out of the job. We're trying to figure out what's going on, if it's pay-based. I thought it might be pay challenged because every applicant has said, you're not paying what I can go make anywhere else. So, not asking you to take an action on that tonight, but no, be sympathetic to the cause of the hiring manager that's struggling right now. Striving to retain current staff. I do a lot of things on this side. Donuts and trinkets and things go a little way. They don't go as far as hard cash, but they go a little way. But that very bottom line is in green for a reason. How much I appreciate the efforts of HR and this council this year in particular. We've done things that are unprecedented. Oh, wait, I wasn't going to use that word. We've done things that aren't normal. And I just want you to know it's absolutely well noticed and appreciated to the maximum that I can express in this conversation. And same to HR. I can't say enough about how good people are to work with. And I truly think we have a great staff. I know my staff is. I can't vouch for all the rest, but I don't have one that I wouldn't put in any position in my 30 years prior to coming to the county. I was an IT guy too. I didn't come here for the money. I came here for the challenge and the opportunity to serve and to build a great team, and that's what I'm still trying to do. All that doom and gloom I just ended with, I wanted to end with a good note, with a real bright slide. We're heading in a great direction. Some of the ARPA money, thanks to you all, is going to do some things that allow us to connect county sites like we've never been able to even think about in the past. We've started supporting the TV translator, the IT group this year. We're going to take that to the next level, and those are both ARPA-funded projects, so I wanted to say I appreciate that. Infrastructure refresh will never end, and we'll try to keep that under a reasonable cap and use the capital improvement plan framework and some other things to try to keep that spending down. On the bottom tier there, Google productivity and the Google Suite is one of the best things I think we've done for the county ever. Even though we took some legacy systems that everybody was comfortable with and did the whole paradigm shift there, it opens up some opportunities that we haven't even tapped into yet. The ability to store and share documents in Drive and things that we haven't totally leveraged yet or coming. We have plans for that. Cybersecurity, I've mentioned enough about that. The bottom right, the unified systems, is really what I want to stress that I strive for. I don't like systems that are islands and don't work well with others. So when departments come to me and say, I want you to tell me about this software, or if you can build this software for me, the first thing we think is, do we have something that already does something like that that we can just tap into? Or can I build something on the cheap that I can tap into other systems and not have to go buy a big commercial product and lock ourselves into a long-term commitment there? We'll continue that for as long as I'm here, absolutely. Keeping a unified system and a unified workforce and keeping things consistent among the various applications and things we do is something we're very conscious of and strive towards. And that, my friends, is the end of my hot-windedness. Do you have any questions for IT? I only get up here about once a year, but I think I see quite a few of you throughout the year with tablet problems or whatever, but I don't think anybody ever asks me questions about IT too much.
I got one question.
Shoot.
On the core.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any concerns? Has anyone shared any concerns about information that they feel like they should be getting in their subscriptions, but they're not able to get?
So, yeah, there are constant concerns about that, and the recorder and IT have worked closer together this year. Good, bad, or indifferent, old recorder, new recorder, throw all preconceptions away. We're moving, core is really a recorder document system. The assessor plays some roles in there and the treasurer plays some roles, but really it's the recorder that runs that, and we're adding documents this year at a rate that we've never added them since core went live. So yes, there are things that we have not been able to present to the public, but they're technical constraints. They're not because we don't want to share that information. There we've got old books and pages. I don't know if you've been down in the recorder's vault, but he spent a lot of money, and I backed him on this, to scan a whole bunch of stuff this year. That stuff will all be online before the end of the year. That's our target anyway. Everything that's been scanned, I don't want to scan stuff and go store it on storage and then not share it with anybody. If we're going to do that, we take it to the end people and say, you've now got more data, and we're not going to raise a rate. We're not going to play any of those games. We're going to stay steady, and we're going to just continue to try to offer more and more information. Do you have specific data? Because I can answer.
I've heard from different businesses that they go to find something, things that they need, and that updated information is not there.
Sure.
So anyway, so you're still working with that.
Yes, and we're still a little bit behind from the recorder change on some owner maps and some things that we're tracking closely.
Okay.
I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes, and I appreciate that.
And we're getting there, and we're aware that there's a bit of a gap there, and we will catch that up.
The other one is I remember a program that I think it came through, and I'm trying to figure out the name of that program that we were, I don't know, was it through the clerk's office that they said that they were using some program to now do all like the minutes and do the agendas, all that kind of stuff?
Civic something, what?
Civic, I don't know.
Civic review.
Civic review, thank you.
Is that a standalone program itself over there too, or is that part
Completely standalone. Completely standalone, not, it wouldn't be supported by my staff.
Right, so is that one of those programs that instead of buying that, we should have worked with this other, worked with the other system?
We talked to Jess, and to develop that would have been difficult, and it's not like when you buy a civic review, you're doing something different than the other 29 counties or the other thousands of counties in the country. It wasn't a bad decision to go with civic review.
I just wanted, you talked about when you worked with these departments, saying you wanted to kind of
Sure.
correlate that together to where
there were things that made sense, Applicant Pro and various that HR uses, that IT couldn't do as well. And that 6-month to year ramp up, where's the payoff? You know what I mean? If somebody's got an application commercially available that hits the target and is reasonably priced compared on, like I said, it took 1.5 years to develop core for $500,000. You don't undertake those things lightly without saying, can I do this? Does it make sense to do this? So I get your question, and we do like to scrutinize and do what makes sense, especially financially. I'm the tightest wad in the bunch, I guarantee you.
Appreciate it very much.
Hey, anything else?
Thank you, Bart. You're phenomenal.
You do an awesome job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bart. All right, now moving on to pending action. Ordinance 2022-32. An ordinance making a cost of living adjustment to the salaries of the Cache County elected officers and members of the Cache County Council. All right, I think we've got information on that. Does anyone want to start this discussion off or do anything with this ordinance? You can see there what the salaries would be.
Welcome to church.
And we're not even on the back row. All right. Anyone want to make a comment on this or express anything?
I've given a lot of thought to this. My initial thought is I would like to see our elected officials do a raise so that we're competitive. I know there are some instances out there. Personally, I'm willing to say as a council member, forego a raise for myself. There's 3 others that's not going to be up here. At the same time that I say that, that lingers forward as to those who want to run for this, who look to be paid, and that's a concern. And that's also my thought is when I look at our treasurer, our assessor, and those who are working, I think they need a raise there. And when we start singling it out, it becomes very, very difficult. I spent some time reading on their ordinances on salaries and things like that. I get letters addressed to me telling me I'm not doing my job. I do tell you I'm here doing my best that I can. I am at those meetings. And yes, I don't do everything perfect. I go back to our committee. Our committee has said, if I believe right, that the COLAs should be there. 2 weeks from today is a very important part. If people have a discussion and a digression about what's going on, and I get plenty of letters about that, I urge our citizens to vote and to make their actions that way. I feel that pigeonholing somebody based on their position puts a tough, hard knock on every council member to justify that and do that. And so my position is I'm willing to forego the raise for me, the council, but I want our elected officials. And I again iterate that there are those that we have concerns with, and that's why I'm backing this up saying, please, citizens, vote. And if you have something to say, get out and petition, get out and write a letter to the editor and do those things, because that's the way you can make your voice heard.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, not Paul, Nolan, sorry.
I'm not as smart as Paul.
Nolan.
You're way smarter than I am.
So.
Any other comments?
I think my thought is just about identical to Nolan's. I feel the same way.
So do I.
And I agree with that also. Very well put, Nolan.
I'll just say, I struggled to give an 8% COLA to elected officials when a lot of the people in our valley who pay the taxes that pay these wages are not getting a COLA. I really struggle with that across the board. yeah, I have a hard time with that. Maybe if it was smaller, I would be in favor of it, but when we have some of the higher, paid positions, 8%, it's over $8,000 in some cases. I struggle with that, and $50,000, that's a new position that we could hire to better serve the citizens, and I think there's an element of public service to what we do, and so I come at it from a completely different perspective, and I really struggle with that because the citizens who aren't getting raises, they're going to be the ones footing this bill, and I struggle with that.
Well, if everybody agreed with Nolan, then it should be fairly easy to make a motion, right, that at least to update this, that we make the salaries for the council effective instead of July 3rd, you make them effective January 1, 2023, because I've never voted for myself a raise yet. And I don't plan to do it on my way out the door, but I think the next council should get that. So I just make a motion, however we're gonna do the rest of it, that for the county council, this would be effective. Cameron's gonna tell me why I can't do that.
I never like to be a bearer of bad news. I just want to point out some relevant facts, we'll say. So what we're talking about here is an amendment to the 2022 budget, so any changes to a 23 budget would not pertain to this document, as well as any salary for any elected official has to be set by ordinance rather than an amendment. So I'll let you ponder that. Thanks.
So we could just strike it.
So I guess from what he just said, we can't set a budget for.
Until next year. So this one.
For the next year's budget.
Right.
I mean, it'll happen this year, but.
So I'd move we strike the raise for the county council on the 2022 budget.
I'm good with that. I agree with what Chairperson.
I'll second that motion.
What Gina said. It is tough to sit and say to raise, but I think in my part, I said that I want those who serve to be compensated fairly for what, so that we attract talent, we attract those who are doing the right thing. But again, that's a hard balance. I mean, I sat and listened to, I wasn't here for the last county council meeting, and I listened to a lady who got up and, talked that very thing, asked that we don't give a raise to that way, but I'm wise in some things and dumb in others, and people can point them out, and they've done a very good job of pointing that out, some letters that come to me. So, but at the same time, I really listen and put some credence to the salary committee, or whatever that committee's called. I think they put a lot of time into that, and so I think all of us put time into our committees and whatever we do from there. So feelings aside and all of those other things that we know that are here, and I understand that and I appreciate that, and I have some of my own feelings there, and it's tough to get around those feelings, but when it comes down to the fact of pay, I don't want to be the person on the council that's sitting there judging if they did their job or not, because that can be done by the citizens by a vote. That's where I'm sitting at. I've thought about it heavily, and I could go back and forth, but this seems to me that I can validate myself in what I'm thinking.
Okay. Now, did we have a motion, or did we strike that motion?
Strike the council raise.
Okay, so we're have a motion and a second to strike the raise for the council members this year. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so do we need another motion now?
On the other, I've looked at those salaries on all the elected officials there, and gosh, they're pretty dang good. I serious. I've showed these to several people, And all of them professionals at that, and everything look at that and go, wow, I wish I was making even a portion of that. But, and I'm not a big fan of, let's compare it to another county, let's compare it to, other places. I say, let's compare it to Cache County. And as we look at Cache County, I think all residents in Cache County are hurting. So, and I'm not a real big fan of raising all of the elected officials' salaries. So.
Council?
It's a tough one. It's not fun. I mean, I look at John Luthi. He's going to be saying goodbye before long. Do we have many who is going to put in for that?
At the wage that's there.
I look at Mr. McAllister. I look at all of them that are working. I mean, just as Councilman Erickson said, this is a lot of pay. But I hope we're attracting the right people when we put out this type of pay also.
I agree. Amy, you had something to add?
Thank you. I appreciate what you're saying, Councilman Gunnell. I also wanted to bring something to your attention and keep this to the forefront, is that with that 8% increase that was approved for all of the employees, that means that our next in line, or our chief deputy, was moved closer to that elected official. And so there's not as much of a gap between the top employee pay versus the elected official. And if we are trying to attract career-minded elected officials in the future, we probably need to be looking at that and keeping that in mind. So just something for you to consider.
Would you say that's on all chief deputies throughout the county and departments on that?
I would say most of them, yes.
Okay.
Amy, we sit in compensation meeting and you present to us. It's going to address a little bit of what Councilman Erickson has said. Is any of these salaries way above every other county or way below any of the other county, or these salaries right in the ballpark of where the rest of the state is judging they should be? What is your answer to where they fit in, up and down, top or bottom?
So all counties are going through this same discussion right now, right?
All hearing it.
So we've always been right in the middle. We've never been the leader, and we've never been the one lagging. So we've kind of kept right in the middle, and I know that's where the council likes to keep things.
So the only place that the county has been lagging is in the council salary, correct?
That is correct.
Way behind, correct?
Yes,
I
way
can say
behind.
that quite loudly because I am leaving in about 2 months.
Yes.
So what you're saying is you've retained or recruited or retracted or attracted some of the lesser class of people?
That's exactly what we've done. No, I didn't really mean that.
I'll say it in names.
No, that was not.
I couldn't resist, sorry.
I know, and I couldn't resist commenting, but that's the way it is. Anyway, this can go on forever, but I would make a motion that we go ahead and we allow.
Thank you, Amy. I'm sorry.
Am I okay to say this?
You're okay.
Okay. I should say, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Go for it.
That we go ahead and we make the county elected officials accepting the council, that we give them the cost of living raise that we gave to all the other county employees, and that we make it retroactive to the 1st of July or the 3rd of July.
I'll second.
Right, it's been moved and seconded that we raise the salaries for the county officers excluding the council members, and make it effective and retroactive to July 3rd, 2022. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Abstain.
And Paul's abstaining, so 4 passes.
It carried.
Okay, thank you, council. I appreciate all that's gone into that. All right, Resolution 2022-27, amending the 2022 Cache County budget. And Cameron, do you have information for us, or what is it we need to talk about here?
When you get started, Cameron, can I just ask a question? Can you just expound really quick on what a chart of accounts is and why a corporation would want a chart of accounts?
So the chart of accounts is a listing of all of the accounting accounts for each of the different types of expenditures. So you'll have payroll accounts, you'll have operational accounts like office expense or utility expenses, that sort of thing, plus capital expenditures, whether for land or equipment or buildings and so forth. And each of those is an account. The chart of accounts then is the listing of the entirety of those accounts.
Is it important for a corporation to have a chart of accounts? Why don't we just put it all in one big bucket and people spend it how they want to? Why would we want to separate it out by a chart of accounts?
Right. I think there's probably multiple reasons. One would be just comparability. So you're tracking the types of expenditures you're having and comparability across industry standards, perhaps. Like, I wouldn't have a chart of accounts of another corporation, but I'd know the types of expenses that we have, and we can have comparability. Certainly in government, our externally audited financial statement leads to comparability against other governments, and so it is critical that we have that type of comparability.
So it's fair to say it's an industry standard across businesses and governments to have a chart of accounts and split out how we allocate money, getting it to the right bucket so we can A, manage it well, B, know what we're doing, and C, audit ourselves to make sure that we're in compliance. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement.
Thank you.
Now I forgot what it said we were talking about. Oh, there was actually one clarification. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yes.
As far as government's concerned, it's also important that we do that so that when we have a budget and we put out there the details of the budget, people can come and comment on that and say, no, I don't want you guys spending money on this, or would you please spend money on this? So it's important that those things are broken out so the public can see where their tax dollars are going.
Okay. The one clarification I wanted to make on the 2022 amendment is in regards to our HR department. There was a request there for some additional funding for some mid-year increases were given due to some certifications that staff had. The dollar amount there is actually higher than it needs to be for that purpose, but I think what's happened is it's kind of crossed wires with the COLA increases. Both of those are being calculated at the same time. And so while the dollar amount there is less, the dollar amount associated with the COLA would be higher, and it's in the end, it's the right amount in their payroll accounts, but those two listings are probably off. So I believe it's item number 21 on the amendment. I didn't bring my computer up with me, but item number 21 on the amendment document. The offset being in item 1 with the COLA increase. The total between the two, I think, is a good total. So I'm not concerned about that, but I just wanted to have that clarification, seeing as that was an error that came to my attention today.
Is that the same type of thing as item number 16? Because we talk about them meeting 3 months period, and then they can get up to a 3% raise.
So that's similar. The raises for different. So it is a standard where when someone's hired or when someone hires into a new position, that they are on an introductory period or an orientation period. At the end of that period, which is 6 months for public employees or 1 year or 12 months for public safety employees, at the end of that period, they're eligible for a 3% increase.
No matter what.
Well, they're eligible for it. Yeah, they're eligible for it. Could be up to, though. It doesn't guarantee a 3%.
Counties and stuff the same way, or what?
I don't know actually on that one. Yep, HR says yes.
Cameron, on that, I was curious as to why maybe that hadn't been factored in to the budget this year, or why they might be asking for new money to do that.
So on that specific item, I should have brought my computer up, and I don't have it. But that one's kind of been hit and miss through the years. I've seen that sometimes departments do have that ready and set, anticipating that, and other times it's something that was falling through the cracks, kind of a thing, and so then it's been requested at a later amendment.
Okay, thanks. Because I don't remember it being something that we regularly see in budget openings, so that's why I wondered.
Well, that's what I'm looking at. You got a probationary period. If you fill the probationary period, you got a job, or you keep your job. But now we got to give a raise because you filled that is
Because you made it
different.
right.
So,
Well, it depends on how you look. So when I started, I specifically remember, and that's been actually a long time ago, but the salary was advertised at a certain rate, and I actually had to accept 3% less than that amount when I started, so that when I completed, then I could be moved up to the.
that point wasn't given, so.
Yeah. And how that works in every
3%
case, I don't know,
is
but I know in my
pretty much
case.
Regular.
Yeah, that's how it worked in my case. I don't know if that's in every case, but certainly in my own case, it worked that way.
And I feel like that should have been budgeted, and so I'm kind of one of those that says, hey, that department just needs to take it out of the regular, what monies they have.
And offset from there.
I don't
If
think
you
we
have,
need to go digging into the fund balance for something that they should have budgeted for. It's not a surprise.
I'll grab my computer if we have additional questions.
While he's doing that, could I ask a question? Nolan, I had asked you about the planning commission, since you are the liaison, I guess, with the planning commission. I know the council, we've talked in the past that the planning commission hasn't seen any increases in, COLAs or ARPA or anything like that because of the nature of their position, and we had talked about giving the planning commission an increase. And Nolan, you were able to, you told me, I can't remember how much they make.
I used to get a check for 60. I reached out to Tim today. Dirk, do you know the answer, what the P&Z gets paid?
Is it per meeting?
It's per meeting.
Isn't it like 15 per meeting? Yeah, it's 15 per meeting or something, isn't it?
Amy, do you know how much it is?
No, they're not considered employees.
And that hasn't changed for years.
Nope.
I think we should change it, especially all the stuff they do and what they did during.
30 years ago.
Yeah, we think it's 15 a meeting.
That's what I heard last, was 15 a meeting.
Gosh, that's so little.
And how many times do they meet?
Every month.
Every month? And how many hours? Yeah,
With people with pitchforks and.
yeah.
There's daggers thrown, so.
They're not happy with
So would
them.
it be fair to say that we should raise them to $50?
I'd be good with that. That's what I was gonna
What
suggest.
would it go under? What,
We have to budget for it somewhere.
yeah. Would it come from the
Development
council
services
or
or
development
council,
services?
Yeah,
Development services, okay.
Municipal services fund.
So is that something I think we probably ought to look at 2023?
Okay,
Maybe that's what we should do.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring
2020.
it up. I didn't want them
So,
to be
yeah.
forgotten.
I agree with you.
I do too.
That's an item that we ought to discuss in the next while.
Okay. Good, I like that.
That's a group that's serving just out of pure public, what's the word, public
service.
I had another question. Cameron, do we have any, what ARPA funds do we have left?
So I don't have an exact dollar off the top of my head, but it's in the $5 million neighborhood of funding that would be, we would find eligible use for, that hasn't had any proposal against at this point. Did I say that right? So we have a lot of money left. Most of it's been committed to certain awards or projects, but $5 million has not been committed
Has not been
to other
committed.
use. Yeah.
Is that money that has to be, is that something you can use on anything, or is that the one that has to meet specific requirements?
Right, that's the one that will need specific requirements.
Okay, does victims advocate funding meet the requirements?
You know what, after our meeting last week, I kind of delved in a little bit again, looking for some, and thought maybe I had an idea, and Alma and I conversed about it, and I was trying to stretch it too much. So we really feel like there's not.
There's not?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was also reading, like on 26, adjusted PLT for payment for employees that left county employment. But then I thought there was an instance where we had payment for, was it the development director who left that we owed some money on for pay or what?
Yeah, I apologize. What number did you say you were looking at?
26. Isn't that already factored into the employment? That his pay is there, and then if he leaves, he's already earned that?
Oh, yeah.
No, so it's not budgeted. So for example, and I don't know what his balance was off the top of my head, but the county policy allows for an accrual up to 520 hours of their leave time. So if I actually take my vacation, then that's there. But when I separate, all of those hours have to be paid out, right? And then so if somebody had 3 months and we don't hire somebody for 3 months and the replacement is hired at or less than that amount, then that would work out. In cases where somebody leaves and then we have a replacement more immediately, then additional funding is needed.
Amy, does somebody's pay or time off accrual forever, or is there use it or lose it policy?
There's,
They can make a third. Cameron can
yeah,
better.
better, I don't know, but I can answer this one. So yes, there are the use it or lose it policies. So each year you can carry over 1/3 of that year's accrual. So easy numbers, let's say I accrued 60 hours this year, which is a fictitious number, but then I would be able to carry over 20 of those hours into the following year. The maximum accrual that I can have is up to the 520 at the end of the employee's anniversary year. So it's not the end of the calendar year. It's if somebody was hired July 1st, then at June 30th, they'll have a cutoff that measures that accrual.
So during a budget year, do we ever know that accrual that's been carried forward for all people, or is it only once they separate that then we go back and calculate it?
Yeah, so typically when they separate, because most employees that separate, we don't know ahead of time that they're going to separate. They're either terminated or they leave.
An idea of what carries balances going forward?
We do know what their balances are. Their balances are absolutely tracked, and we could put a number in the budget, but we haven't. We don't know what that number is going to be, and if we shoot high, then people's upset that we didn't have funding for something else because we budgeted for something that didn't get used. And if we're low, then we have to come back anyway. It's a really broad range of possibility where you're talking about separation from the county for any reason. And when some people leave, they hardly have any leave time because they've used it while they've been here. And when other people leave, they have all 520 hours.
All right, any other questions?
I have.
Okay.
So, items number 24 and 25, account 4170-200. We've got two different things going into that 200 account, material supplies and services. In that particular department, the budget for materials and supplies this year is $372,000. Looks like everything goes into materials and supplies. And for 24 and 25, it might be. I think
you have an updated version, maybe?
On the email one.
So this is under.
And let me just tell you why I'm asking, because we have 15,000 for drop boxes that appears that should go in non-capitalized equipment. We've paid for security cabinets in non-capitalized equipment and office furniture at much less than we're paying $15K for drop boxes.
Yeah.
And we've got a department that basically drops everything into one line. It's all over the board what's in that one line.
Yeah. In elections, with background on that, that's not something that I've seen new to this official. That's been a trend for a long time.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to ask about was number 6, when we talk about things, just for some background on the $60,000 for the space needs analysis. That just to walk through the history for the council, back in April, instead of $60,000, that was actually $3.1 million to do an update on the building. It came out of nowhere that we denied, and that was under account 720. Came back in June at $100,000 under account 729 that we denied, and now it's back at $60,000 under account 310. I'd make a motion that we strike that from this budget.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we strike from the budget ARPA space needs analysis for the county employees, $60,000. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
What number was that, by the way?
It's number 6, number 4.
Number 4, yeah.
Because I was looking at 6 and I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not 6.
Sorry, it's number 4.
Anything else, Paul?
That's all.
I have a question on, again, we're back to the question on miscellaneous accounts. Who can spend from the miscellaneous accounts?
So it depends on which one you're talking about. So each department has a miscellaneous account, so that would be restricted to the department head of those departments. There are the functional budgeted departments that don't have a department head. So like finance does, HR does, IT does, but we'll have like a non-departmental budget that picks up things that are kind of countywide expense. We have a miscellaneous one that is a division number 4960. Typically, the executive would approve those or expenditures from those departments, budgeted departments.
I've had a question on miscellaneous ever since I got here. Is it history that determines what miscellaneous amount is, or do we use that as a function of a percent of the budget?
It's mostly history. There's specific items, so it's not a percentage by any means. And we talked about last time just a little bit for the 2023 budget. Much of what's been going to miscellaneous has been assigned a different, more specific home for budgets.
Well, there's a couple that we have in here that we were wanting to build back up.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one that's gotten down, you want to put 12,500, I can't find it right now. But we wanted to like build them back up, and I'm going, why would we want to build them back up if, how did they get spent in the first place?
Do you have a line number, Dave?
I'll find it, I didn't write it down.
To remember, there's I want to find one too, just so I make sure I don't misspeak. There was, I believe, a $22,000, but I want to make sure what account that one was coming out of. Sometimes we could jump right to it, but when there's 88 items, I gotta search a little more. Do you remember the issue it was tied to by chance, or just an amount, or?
I thought it was around 12, something that we want, you explained to us that that had gotten low and you wanted to use it for something and you wanted to build it back up. And I was kind of curious. I wanted some more details on that, so I'd have to do some more digging. I know there's another one that we were wanting to put a bunch of money in for the summer party and the Christmas theme, and I was kind of curious about did what we have in there get spent?
Wasn't that the 1,900 and 9,000?
That was let's see, number 22 is additional funds for employee summer party, 1,900, and Christmas dinner was 9,000, and that is going into miscellaneous expense. So the specific amounts for that were not budgeted. We had some in there, but the additional amounts, what's being requested. And that's a good example, actually, of in the 23 budget, we have moved that to an HR expense where HR kind of has an employee function. But we didn't propose that move in this budget, although we could if you wanted to.
I just worry that I thought that a lot of the budget that we had done last year would have covered all these things. And I'm worried that did we overspend in some areas, and now we're going to use these as the excuses to beef them up. You know,
I see what you're saying. Right.
It's just hitting me wrong, and I want an answer, I guess.
Yeah, and
details.
On the spot, I don't have a reconciliation of what's there to provide that for you.
I'd have to do some more digging. again.
You know, just to comment, as we look at all of these things, the county has been hit by the effects of inflation like everybody else. And I think sometimes when we did a budget back in the fall of 2021, what have we had, 15% inflation in the last year, and so their costs have simply gone up in a lot of instances, I think. And what they had budgeted didn't cover the expense due to inflation.
That's certainly true for the gasoline, some of the gasoline issues I've seen.
I think we have, our departments have tried to budget very carefully and closely to what they expect their expenses to be, and haven't built in a lot of slush for unexpected costs that happen. And so that may be part of it.
I think you're right, Carl, because not only gasoline, but everything's been affected because of that. Even your paper supplies have gone up with that. So I agree with that statement. Dave, did you have anything else you wanted to pursue on that?
I can't find that right off, but we had 3 of those miscellaneous counts that were wanting an increase at one time, and unless this one's changed from the previous one that we saw a couple of weeks ago.
No,
it has happened.
This hasn't changed.
So.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or?
I'd like one more meeting to look at these, because 88 is a lot to go through and consider and figure out.
Do we have a time crunch on any of this?
I don't know. The first thing when you said that, I thought, oh, can you vote on my software request? Because I'm sure our vendor's going to call us in the morning. We're working on the grant software, but it is not a time sensitive. So if you wanted more time to consider it, that would be fine.
So you're saying, Gina, we want to do this and the other budget at the same night, same meeting?
That's unfortunately how it's worked itself out, but I mean, there's 88 things on here, and it takes some time to go through and for me to look at them. And
I was able to get through them all and look at them.
you are a lot faster than I am. I'm slow, I guess.
I didn't get through them all.
You didn't?
No,
Okay.
we just got it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, this was provided.
This was, yeah. Yeah, this was a while back.
remind me on the software amount again. I remember you talking about it, but I don't remember the amount right off.
Yeah, so the amount came in 2 pieces, and I'm going to just back up just to answer the question there. The total we were asking for there was $68,000, and I listed it out in 2 pieces. It's number 19 on the amendment, and you can notice that the 2 pieces are going to the same account, the software packages account. 17 of it is actually for the implementation, helping us transition onto the software program, and then 51 is an annual license agreement. And this software does some important things for us. It helps us search and apply for grants, but not just in terms of showing us there's a grant availability, but we actually get templates of grant applications that have been successful in the past, so that we have something that we can model our application after and hopefully have successful applications. And it will help us track those year to year. So if we ever get a grant, it will the software will continue to track those for us so that we can apply for them in the future. It also will help us manage our existing grants. Right now we're using spreadsheets and email, and this, as we expand those a little bit, and over the last 2 years with CARES Act and ARPA, we've had a really big expansion of grants. But this will help us manage that. But it also and help us close it out and keep compliance. And it allows not just my staff or myself to be into this software, it allows people from the sheriff's office or people from the fire department and throughout the county to be users of this system so that we can collaborate on the same data set a little more effectively than what we do right now. But there's also a sub-recipient or a sub-award component to that. And the idea that I have there is actually for wraps and restaurant tax. That will, and even COG funding could be put on this. That will allow entities to make their application truly online rather than downloading a PDF and then emailing that to us. It allows them to be users where they can put their contact information in, their city information in one time, and then it's reaccessible each year. What we're using right now, and it will, sorry I interrupted myself, but it will also build into eligibility criteria so that an entity will know up front whether they're submitting an eligible application or if they need to tweak their application or if they're just not going to be eligible. Right now what we're using is a Microsoft Access database program that I wrote, and it helps us determine eligibility and it tracks applications for us. But this is leaps and bounds ahead of what we have, and the biggest problem that we actually have with Microsoft Access is Microsoft is going to discontinue offering it. So we'll be stuck on old versions until we just give it up anyway, because Microsoft is no longer going to include it on their offerings. And that's kind of what got us started looking, and when we hired Alma, we started looking for something that would really be a support to him in his management and seeking of grants. And we've been through several products. Some we ruled out based on cost alone. The cost was so high we just didn't even pursue looking at them any further than that. Others where we felt overcomplicated. This one kind of was a good match in terms of cost and user friendliness, I think, usability, and meeting the needs that we have. And so that's why we come with this proposal. The proposal here is to take that funding from fund balance. That will immediately put it into the budget. However, we do anticipate funding this with grant funds. So each time we seek a grant, we can have a little administrative portion of that funding that can, or a portion of the funding that can come for administrative reasons that would pay for this. So we really expect this to be fully paid for from grant funding.
And this would be something that supports Alma, supports most departments. Do we have any idea on average what grants are coming in or how many are out there? Or?
I don't have a good count on my head. We have easily, on an average year, 5-6 million in grants that are county grants. We throw ARPA on top of that, and we suddenly have 30 million, in grants. That goes away though, and we kind of will go back down to that average. But those are the ones we've had existing, and we're really hoping that this also helps us obtain some additional grants. The difference between like a one-time grant though, which we get sometimes, versus ongoing grants. So even like with the Victims Advocates grants, it's a state grant that we get year after year after year after year. This actually helps us manage that as well.
Is there licensing continuing yearly on this?
Yeah, there'll be an annual license agreement that I've got to increase. So this one's 51,000, and actually, so for this year it would be prorated. So actually, only a small amount would go into the budget this year, and then we would have to have a budget, which we did put in for our budget request next year. But this $51,000 would go up 4%, is what I've been told, and we have for 5 years, and after that, I don't know.
And you think that cost would be delineated by taking portions of each grant that come through that this software alerts you to?
Yeah, well, not only what it alerts us to, but even ones that we have. So sometimes when we get grants, or we respond to some new grants. So I remember when the canal broke, and we had a huge amount of grants during that season. We didn't actually ask for some of the dollars that were available because we wanted to ask for all of the dollars that could be put into what's called financial assistance, but just meaning we use those for the project on the ground kind of thing. This opens the door for a technical assistance grant where we can say, hey, we need some additional funding for the administration of those grants. And many grants, maybe not all, but many of them actually offer an additional amount for administrative purposes, and we would start requesting those funds so that we could pay for this software.
If it does what you say it is, I'm initially for it.
I mean, I think there's a lot in this budget that's commendable. Most of it, in fact. The one thing that
that I've been not a proponent of since the beginning is ARPA. I think it was a bad idea, and we're living with the consequences of it now. And instead of doubling down on dumb, because we already did one dumb thing and passing ARPA, we shouldn't take that money and do things we wouldn't have normally done to begin with and dig ourselves an even deeper hole by spending it on wasteful things. Most of this in here, I think that grant software was something we would probably do. So there's some decent things to do with the ARPA money. I mean, we got a budget that we're gonna have to wrestle with for a while, and while there's a few things in here that kind of got some heartburn over, we're not gonna solve those tonight or next time. But most of the budget I think is good. You got most departments that have done a fantastic job of making sure it's easy to see what they're doing. So, I'd be okay.
All right. What do we want to do?
He needs a proposal for the software grant, right?
Well, that or any or all of it, but just any other questions?
I do. Sorry to belabor this, but in number 76, explain those, what's happening there. And did we not have the money when we did these, when we committed to an event sponsorship and a special event? Did we not have the money in that?
Not transferred to the fairground, so.
Well, some of it's coming out of general fund.
So yeah, what's happening here is you'll see event sponsorship is that first account line, and it's a negative $5,000. That is an expense account. So the Vision Bureau is proposing to reduce their budget by $5,000, and then the next line transfers it to the general fund. And then the general fund is receiving that as a transfer in, that's a credit amount, so it shows as negative. But then the very last line is increasing the special events of the fairgrounds by $5,000.
Okay.
So the Vision Bureau is proposing, and I hadn't personally talked about it, but the Vision Bureau then proposing a sponsorship of the Cash Cheese Dairy
The
Festival.
same kind of things happen in number 66, right?
Yes, that's actually donations that were given to our community foundation, so they'll become a tax deductible donation. And so they go into that entity and then they transfer out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is why you always wanted to be an accountant, Dave.
Yeah. And then I got a question for our attorney. Attorney's asking a bunch of money. Did you run out of money when we were, or something, spend the money too fast on getting us a lobbyist and then have to hurry and try to request more?
I was not aware that I'm asking for money in this budget opening. I know that for the Children's Justice Center we are, and if that's under mine.
What line number is that, Dave?
I don't have that document.
So there's two line items. I apologize, John, the staff didn't have to be more aware of what was here.
What number was it?
To my knowledge, it was discussed. Number 2728 fall under that attorney office. This is 27 is related to the market adjustments that were discussed. And so, no, those funds were not in the budget amendment, or excuse me, in the adopted budget for the attorney.
Some of the services and fines and forfeitures that we thought we'd be getting or something, or?
No, so again, confusing. On a revenue line like municipal prosecution or courts and fines, a negative balance indicates an increase. So what this is saying is that we actually collected more funding in those revenue accounts than what is in the budget right now. And so because we knew that, we're actually proposing to use those funds to offset the market adjustments for the attorney's office, rather than say take it from fund balance or hope that sales tax was going to be higher. These ones we actually already know, and because we've already received that amount more, and so we put those in. Number 28.
I was aware of those, I want to say, but where they'd already been discussed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So then number 28 is similar, and I can't remember who had asked about the question about it was on the personal leave time payouts. So a number of attorneys have left, and they had leave time balances then that were not, and we replaced those attorneys, and so we need additional funding to pay those leave time payouts.
When we chased down Dave's thing, it brought me up onto the Visitors Bureau, and they had grant expenses of $20,000. Is what you're talking about, software on grants, going to alleviate that, or is that a different thing?
Which number are we looking at? Sorry.
I think it was 72. You've got grant expenses of $20,000 under the Visitors Bureau. 74.
74. No, this is a little bit different. And actually what's happening here is the state of Utah received CARES Act funding that they could pass through to
So that's a receiving?
This is a receiving one, and it's been spent, so they're recognizing it.
Appreciate that.
Color code them. Black for in, red for out.
It gets confusing if it's, I guess, black, negative in. Oh, we could probably do that. We could probably do that.
All right, any other questions, comments?
Okay.
Thank you, Cameron. All right, there's been a request that we wait another 2 weeks on this, or how do we want to handle this?
Do you need to still look at it more, Gina?
Yeah, I do have maybe a couple of things that I wanted to look at, but if you guys.
Can or do we need to get the approval for the software thing for the grant?
Say that again, Nolan?
Can or do we need to now get the approval for the software grant that he's asking for? Didn't you say you needed that?
No, I actually, I would appreciate that, but that could wait if.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I do today what I can delay for 2 weeks, so. I didn't say that.
All right, do we want to delay this for another 2 weeks then? What's the feelings?
I'm okay with it as it is, but if others, council members need to also review it further, then we ought to give them the opportunity.
Okay.
Is there any council member that wants to delay it?
Gina would like to delay it. Uh-huh.
All right.
All right, but I would have a strong suggestion that we get this taken care of within the next 2 weeks. No more delays. That's what I want. No more
Maybe
delays.
One last question, Madam Chair, if it's okay. I've made notes on items number 2 and 3 based on your prior discussion related to the COLA increases for the council and for other elected officials. Those items were treated separately and voted on separately. Are there a few items that you would want to do in 2 weeks while everything else could move forward at this point, or do we truly want to delay all of them for the next 2 weeks?
Good point. We voted on this.
2's out, right?
Pardon me?
Number 2's out.
2 is out. 2 and also number 4.
2 and 4.
2 and 4.
But number 3 was essentially approved by your last vote.
Yeah,
I think we could move forward with number 3.
I think we can move forward. How do you feel on number 3?
Yeah.
Rest of the council?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, so you actually voted on 3 to move forward
Correct.
already. My question is, are there a few that you would want to pull out for further consideration while you allow the rest of them to be, all of them to move forward with the exception of a few? Or do you want to just wait and do all of the rest of them in 2 weeks?
Well, tonight we voted on all of them, didn't we?
You did.
And we did an affirmative.
Individuals, I mean on the line items. Yeah, of the 88 items, yeah.
Oh, which one is it?
all of them.
All 88.
Oh.
So of the 88 items, are there a few that you would want to delay for a few more weeks, or do you want to delay all of them that haven't been voted on?
That gets,
I think that they agreed that we would wait for all of those that have not been voted on so that they can be further reviewed. Is that correct?
I mean, I'm like Paul. I mean, there's a few things in there, but I think most departments are doing what they should, and they've done that. The only thing I get down to, and I'm just like Dave, is the miscellaneous. Drives me flipping nuts. I would like to get to miscellaneous to 1% of their budget, so I know exactly where that's going. That's my personal feeling, but that's coming from a finance background, so.
Completely agree with you.
And that's, you know, there's a few of those things that kind of get.
Having dealt with a budget every year in the private sector, I'm sure grateful that I had a miscellaneous line.
Right.
Things come in that you simply cannot foresee when you start the budget process. And they just happen.
Wasn't it like a percentage though, like?
No?
Mm-mm.
I'm
No,
fine
what
with
was it?
miscellaneous lines. We're just talking about certain line accounts that get into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's where the concern is. It's not like 15 we're talking here. It's, you're throwing everything into a bucket.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, we're going to say that we're going to hold off the items we haven't approved, but move on with the approved items for another 2 weeks. Agreeable to the council?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. 11A, and Resolution 2022-28. These are for proposals for consideration of action. A resolution establishing county policy on supporting local nonprofit organizations. And I'm going to turn some time over to Gina for this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We talked about this idea a couple council meetings ago, and the feeling of the council was, let's put this in writing and bring it back. So that's what I've done. I have tried to remember what the points were that were made in that meeting and what it was that we wanted to accomplish. The idea being mostly that we don't want to compete with nonprofit organizations, and we want to be able to give them support equally and keep in contact with them. Having those amazing organizations that we have saves taxpayers money, and it also gives people in our community an opportunity to serve, which strengthens our community. And so we don't want to be doing things that would detract from that. And so I tried to reflect what the council said, and hopefully I did that accurately. So, I turn it to Paul because this was his idea, so I don't want to take away from that. Go ahead, Paul.
Right, and I think you covered it what we wanted.
Okay,
The language is there to look at, so.
I only had one question. I mean, I think a while ago we had a nonprofit here that was help dealing with PTSD and people that had that. Does that come under mental or anything else that we're dealing with and talking about when we say we're not competing against those nonprofits is doing that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you mean is because we have the Bear River Health Department, but I believe.
Or if we get a receiving center or what we're doing, are we then in effect competing against some like that? I'm looking from a general side because there's a lot of nonprofits.
And I have a question. Would it be wise to put that we're dealing with nonprofit organizations that are designated as a 501c?
That's a good idea.
That is a very good idea.
Because a lot of those nonprofit organizations say they're nonprofit, but they're not really listed as a 501c.
Yeah, that's very
That's a good point. Very good. I like that.
So if we could get that included in the language someplace, I think that would be better served.
Not just that, but if there is already, for example, with mental health, if we already working with Bear River Health, and I think we need to direct any resources that we have through Bear River Health and let them work through Bear River Health in that particular instance. Independent nonprofits and things like that, I think we need to be very leery. Like you mentioned, they need to have the credibility comes when they do file, they start filing those taxes and gain that status from the government that they are a legitimate nonprofit. The other thing is that we not only in doing businesses with them, that we also, that we don't take anything from them, In other words, that we should not be taking free services from a nonprofit to attend their events and to and expect to say, hey, we should get free tickets, things like that, to those fundraisings, things like that. We should never do that.
Mm-hmm.
Never do that. So.
Well, I agree, and that's what I tried to express in number 4. No remuneration remuneration, that is the hardest word to say, or privileges of any kind shall be expected or given to county officer, employee, county elected official due to donations given to nonprofit.
It looks like you just switched the M and the N around there.
Well, when I looked it up, I think it said that was the right, I don't know.
Remuneration?
Yeah.
Remuneration.
Because some of these do have some high-profile people, and if you want to go rub shoulders with them, pay to go rub shoulders with them. Don't expect them to give you a free pass for, that's just downright wrong.
But we should not take advantage of our office
Yeah,
to do
that's,
that.
I think that's abusing your elected office, so.
I do too.
Okay.
So
So,
what if, oh, I'm sorry,
Do you
go
want to
ahead.
just, we can take this back and put in the 501c3 portion,
Yeah.
figure out where that goes, and
I
then
was
just bring
thinking
it
of
back.
adding it on number 1, but I can work that in. Was there anything else?
No, the rest I think looks great,
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
great policy.
All right, Resolution 2022-29, a resolution clarifying county policy on the preparation of the county council agenda. And again, we'll turn that over to Gina on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since really the beginning of the county council, the council chair has prepared the council agenda. It is the council's meeting with the help of the shared council executive secretary. And I thought that that has long been the practice. I talked to Jill Zollinger, who worked in the clerk's office since 1988. She told me that the clerk has never participated in helping with or doing the agenda. I also spoke with Daryl Gibbons, who was one of the very first council members when we changed from the commission form, as well as Randy Weston, and they both told me the same thing as well. And so having it be the council's meeting, it should be done by the council and the council chair and not anybody else. And that's where this comes from. I also checked with 3 other counties that I know have a council form of government. I checked with Salt Lake County. I talked to their council chair, Laurie Stringham. She has her policy advisor help her do the agenda. They also have a council clerk who helps them put things together. She reiterated to me how important it is to have that separation of duties, and that is why they do that. It's the council's meeting, and the council needs to prepare their own agenda and be able to conduct their own business. And she said if anyone has questions about that, they've gone through the whole thing, looked at it, and we're welcome to call and talk to her, and I can give you the phone number if you'd like. I also talked to Councilman Tom Tripp out of Tooele. Tooele County just switched to a council manager form of government, and their administrative assistant is the one who helps prepare their council agenda. And I talked to Glenn Wright, councilman out of Summit County, also a council manager form of government. And similar to us, their council manager and their county council share a staff assistant, and that person is the one that does the assisting in the preparation of the agenda. Our county code does show that we have a shared secretary with the executive. It's under the council portion of the code, and it's 2.12.170B. And I could, give you further things if you're concerned about Robert's rules. Robert's rules, which we have adopted, says that the secretary of the body is supposed to prepare the agenda. However, Roberts yields to actual law. And whereas we have it in our code specifically in 3 places that the chair prepares the agenda, it is clearly in the prerogative of the chair and the council to prepare the agenda. And so I will make a motion to waive the rules and approve this resolution.
Any comment?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I think it clarifies a lot of things for us. That's great policy.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 2022-29 and waive the rules. with waiving the rules. And that's a resolution clarifying county policy on the preparation of the county council agenda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Gina.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
bring up a point?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins just got back with me, and it is $15 a meeting the P and Z gets, so.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Gosh, that's like 2 candy bars and a Coke.
If you're
You
lucky.
get to choose between
Depends on where you go.
Deflation over all those years.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
On that note, I'd note there is state code provision that says planning commission members can get a per diem and
A per
travel.
diem.
And so you can adjust it as a per diem rate and those expenses, but couldn't call it something else. And there are code limits within which that per diem can be set, but we could help you with that.
So is that 15 intent on the per diem, or is it?
That's probably the per diem.
It's probably been what the per diem's been. You get a per diem for actually attending under state code.
I think that's the
Yeah.
understanding years ago, that's kind of what they kind of told us, that, hey, just that's for you to drive in here and back and attend these meetings. It really they didn't pay any hour or anything like that, you know.
So if they miss the meeting though, then do they not?
They do not get the.
They do not get the per diem, okay.
That's true, because if you missed, you didn't get the 15.
Mhm.
Which
Wow.
hurt heavily, man. Jeez.
All right, let's move on here. We're getting to the late time. 11C, amended policy regarding poll watchers. Who had that? Or what? Amy? Yeah, okay.
Oh, yes, this is the.
Yeah.
Yes, so I sent each of you an email explaining this. I've reviewed the policy, and there isn't anything specific in there as to who should pay for it, just that it should be provided. However, having a volunteer, they will need to get their own background or, their background check from the sheriff's office, because we cannot run that based on the contract that we have with them. So in the email, I recommended that if that's something that you want to do, that we do a reimbursement. And I've worked with finance on how that process would be able to move forward. But we would also need to budget approximately $1,000 into the HR budget to cover those types of expenses. The reason through the HR budget is because we do have volunteers fill out all of their volunteer forms, and we keep an active log of who our volunteers are. So that seemed to be the most reasonable rather than each individual department.
Question, years ago, there were a lot of part-time people hired for the election. So did that money that was used there shift to more full-time people, and now these poll watchers are called different than those who were part-time employees during the elections?
So we don't call them poll watchers, they're called election workers, and they're given a temporary status. That's,
Poll watchers.
it is called poll watchers. You can call them what they want. I know what you mean. So,
Well, I was saying what's in there, so I don't want to be termed as racist or anything.
so they are our election workers, and they're temporary. And if they are being hired by the county as part-time employees, then the county would cover that expense. But volunteers were not able to do that upfront, but we could do a reimbursement. And that's based off the contract that the sheriff's office has with the Bureau of Criminal Investigations.
So are we getting to a thing here where we got to do a per diem as well?
It sounded like it was more of a reimbursement type thing.
It would be a
Just for the
reimbursement.
background check?
Just for the background check.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this would include not just the poll watchers, but also help for like Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels, yes. And so that $1,000 did include Meals on Wheels and election workers. We do have other volunteers that wouldn't require a background check, and so we wouldn't need to pay or reimburse them for that, so.
Amy, thank you so much for looking into that and bringing us a number.
Background check to do
You're
on this?
welcome.
We appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank
I was
you.
just gonna say, this may be the easiest
One,
pass tonight.
yeah.
I make a motion that we amend the policy regarding poll watchers.
We should
To
just probably say volunteers on that one.
volunteers to
Oh, wait, just a minute, just a minute.
Just a minute.
There's no policy that needs to be amended. So really, it's just that you agree that we're going to do a reimbursement and we'll just budget it. Yeah.
Okay,
We could put that in the budget.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Perfect. Okay.
There we go.
okay.
Okay.
Just don't put it in miscellaneous. It'll-
Good thing they didn't do a background check on the council members.
Okay, budget. All right,
Toilet paper.
moving on. Discussion regarding the policy analyst. All right, we've talked about this in the past. Anyone want to add anything to this? Policy analyst for the council.
Just that we need it.
We need it. Okay,
Do we have to discuss full or part-time?
that's kind of yes, but I talked to Cameron today. There has been an approval for a full-time analyst, correct, Cameron? Proposal, okay.
But it hasn't- In that regard, it hasn't been approved
Okay.
yet, but it is in the proposal for the 2023.
Okay, for the 20.
Fine, we can be part-time even though we budgeted for full-time, correct?
Yeah, so, yes, that, if you wanted, then you would amend the budget to put funding in a part-time account rather than in the full-time employee account, but the funding would just be a transfer. It's all.
How would that work? That'd be salary person who would need to be here during the council meetings too, right?
That's right. That's right.
It makes sense.
Oh, I have no idea if it's exempt or not. No, she's telling me, sorry, it's not an exempt position is what she said.
It's not an
It's
exempt,
not an exempt
And we
position.
don't,
so, okay.
we could wipe it out in 2 council meetings.
They take Wednesday off.
But if they work 3 months, then all of a sudden they're back.
What?
We understand that if they work 3 months, then all of a sudden they get a big
3% raise.
3% raise.
No, it's 6 months.
Well, then who
6
the
months
heck-
is the
then
orientation.
Who the heck worked for 3 months?
I don't know.
I want to know.
Yeah, because there was discussion on 3 months, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Amy, go ahead.
That ain't something.
One thing that I'd like you to consider as you're thinking about a part-time and a full-time position is that I see that this is a career-type position, and the type of qualifications that are being required in the job description would be seeking someone who has more of a career-type job that they would be searching for, not necessarily a part-time position. So if you wanted to attract the types of candidates that is listed in the job description, I would recommend making it a full-time position. Also, in talking with a few of the council members, a part-time position probably would just be managing your calendars and maybe popping into a few committee meetings that you're not able to attend and reporting on those, not being able to necessarily dive into policy and different things that you are hoping that they would be able to do, especially around the legislative time. So keep that in mind as you have your discussion.
Thank you, Amy.
Wait a minute. You said this is not an exempt, but it's a career position, right? So that seems to differ to me.
So we have to follow the Fair Labor Standards Act and follow the exempt test. And this position does not fit the exempt test. It would be an hourly position.
So we're all policy analysts, hourly position?
Did you check
Some
with
of them
the
are.
Other
Some of
other
them are,
counties?
some aren't.
Mhm.
What determines those that are and those that aren't?
It's the same test, and there
What's
have
the-
been.
What's the test?
It's the Fair Labor
Is it a
Standards Act.
litmus test? Is it
It's through the Fair Labor Standards Act, so it's a federal test.
It's a go, no-go test.
So you're welcome to look that up. It will pop right up as a Fair Labor Standards Act test, so
That just seems confusing.
it does.
All right, I will make a suggestion that we approve this, but not not hire anyone until 2023, but have that person ready to go by the first meeting of 2023, which means that we could put the requisition out and possibly start accepting applications for it. That's my recommendation.
Council is involved on the interview?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, Amy and I have talked about that, and the council will be involved with the interview with that. Plus, you know, whatever the council, if they'd like a couple other members involved on that, they can be involved on the hiring board. But that's my suggestion and my proposal. And as a full-time position.
Sounds good to me.
I will say that I've had some interest expressed from other county employees in this position.
I have too.
Yeah, so,
Several reach out.
yeah, so, you know, I think I know I agree with Amy that this is a career position, and I have no doubts that we could keep them very busy with everything, especially just taking care of the 7 of us, you know, so.
One full-time actually might not be enough for doing all the things that.
Yeah, that this job
that
description.
job description entails.
Well, we'll give it a try as it
Right,
is.
I'm not complaining, I'm just
Yeah.
playing Captain Obvious, sorry.
All right, so as a council, are we agreeable to that? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I'll work with Amy so that we can get the requisition and start accepting applications probably the 1st of December. Is that what you recommended, Amy? And then after the new year, then we'll get a hiring board together, which will include county council members. Right? Thank you. Thank you, Amy. All right. John, were you going to talk about this here?
Yeah.
This is not your farewell speech, though.
No, it's not. I'm going to talk about the law. For those who may not be aware, the governor appointed me to the Utah Court of Appeals, and the Senate has confirmed that appointment. I plan to have my last day at the county be November 9th and take the oath of office on the 10th in that new position. The Court of Appeals has been down 2 judges for some months as 2 judges from that court were appointed to the Utah Supreme Court, and I understand the other judges are anxious to get someone else on board for the caseload. So that timing means that there are, and the fact that that my name's the only name on the ballot for county attorney in the upcoming election. So I wanted to explain the law on how filling those 2 terms that are at issue work, and give a couple of thoughts on that. There are 2 terms at issue. There's the term that I'm filling now that was originally James Swink's term. It ends the end of this year. As I step down in November, that means there will be a term that's vacated with less than 2 years left in the term. And state law says in that event that the county notifies the Republican Party, since that's the party with which I'm affiliated, and they submit 3 names within 30 days. The council has within 45 days, not of when they get names, but that same clock from when the vacancy is, a notification of the vacancy is made, 30 days for the party to submit 3 names, and then 15 more days for the council to act. By the time that happens, it will be near the end of December. And if anyone from the county attorney's office were to apply for that, or anyone else for that matter, they'd get to fill out the remainder few days of a county attorney term. And for a county employee doing that, they would lose merit employment, as they did that to be county attorney for a week, and then they'd be unemployed after that. And not only would they be unemployed, but they'd be ineligible to be an interim county attorney as January 1 starts and a new term starts. The attorneys in my office are aware of that. I don't anticipate that you'll see any applications to the party to fill the term for this year. I don't anticipate that you'd see applications from members of the local bar to be county attorney for 1 week unless they had aspirations to dismiss all the criminal cases or do some other crazy action for a week and then go back to their practice. So what's my recommendation to the council? You would, as soon as there's a vacancy, the council can vote to appoint and should vote to appoint an interim county attorney who does not fill the elected seat, but serves as an interim and to finish out that term. You could let the time for you to appoint someone expire, and then the state code says the governor would need to step in and appoint, but he's got plenty of time to act, that the year would end before anyone is required to act. So with that little bit of an anomaly, I wanted to explain that so that there wouldn't be questions and that the public wouldn't have questions, that the party will need to be notified. Party can open an application period, but they're unlikely to get applications. You're unlikely to get names. That shouldn't be a problem. You should appoint someone to be an interim county attorney for the remainder of this year. Then a new county attorney term will start in January. Again, presumably I'd be elected if my wife will vote for me. I think it'll only take one. And then I won't take that seat, so you'll immediately have a vacancy with more than 2 years left in a term. And state code says in that event that an interim would need to be appointed from among the deputy county attorneys who would serve for 2 years until the next general election, at which point the elected seat would be filled. So I just wanted to make that set of law clear, and then let you know that, and I'll do this in a letter as I anticipate stepping down, but we'll make a recommendation that you'll see that the administrative team in my office is here. My Chief Deputy Tony Baird and Chief Prosecutor Dane Murray, our Lieutenant of Investigations Nate Argyle. I think Terrell is still out in the hall. But we together are supportive of Dane Murray being named as the interim county attorney, both for the remainder of this year and in January when the council will vote again. And I appreciate, this is not my speech, but I will just say I appreciate each member of my administrative team and our whole staff. They all have my utmost respect.
Question, will you be able to work from home? Will you stay in Cass Valley, or will you be, you know?
The Court of Appeals hears cases.
We just want to keep you as a...
Yeah, the short answer is I won't be moving down south. I will be staying here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, John. All right, next we have a discussion regarding the Public Defender's Office, and I'm going to turn some time over to Paul for this one.
So this will be really quick for me, and maybe Mike can help us out, but the state of Utah is looking at doing some things with the Public Defender's Office, indigent defense, and really the gist of this whole thing that we're used to seeing is just like we do with Bear River Association of Governments, we can coordinate with Box Elder and Rich County to come together to kind of have a public defender's office. All three counties are in the same court system, First District Court, and that way we don't have to replicate all of the administrative costs and things. We can work together as a county. There are two MOUs from different counties that are already doing this in your packet. I anticipate we'll see some of that come up in the next few weeks. We're working on it with Box Elder right now. And so I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar that that's something that could be coming up. But Mike, do you have anything that I've missed or we need to say? We had a great meeting with the council and you and Box Elder and the Indigent Defense Commission.
No, I think what I would like to do in the next couple of weeks is present and go find out some more details and present that to the council, so we know what we're getting into, and go talk to Box Elder at the same time and make sure we understand what the terms are and how that would work.
So a while ago, we increased what we were paying the public defenders in that. Is that in comparison with the other counties we're talking about joining forces, or do you know what I'm talking about there?
So, yeah, so we did, each county, the way we're talking about partnership is each county would have their own budget. So we're not talking about sharing budgets with Box Elder. But yeah, in talking to the council in Box Elder, because of our increase, they're going to increase their public defender salaries. They're also having a hard time finding people to fill positions as well.
And as I understood it from the Indigent Defense Commission too, if we do something like this, like other counties have been doing, I think it's Weber and Morgan are the closest ones, than some in Central, that it frees up some more grant money because we're working the way they like to see it. So we would have some additional budget funds available to us.
Right. It moves us up the grant hierarchy, I guess you could say. They allocate funds based on certain standards of each county. So it would move us up, that our county and Box Elder County would be eligible for additional grants.
So there's plenty more to come, but we just want to take a few minutes and make sure everybody's aware of the work that the council's been doing on this to get this going.
So Mike, did you want to do a presentation in 2 weeks?
That'd be
Okay.
fine, yeah. Let me
All right.
look more into it and maybe come with a more solid plan of how this would work. If
You know,
that,
do you want more than 2 weeks, or?
I think 2 weeks I can give you an update and
Okay.
maybe see how
That'd be
it's
great.
going, and if I can get in to meet with Box Elder.
Okay.
To understand what the terms are.
Okay, very good.
Great if we could start this with the new year, right?
Yeah.
Start January 1.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Yep. Thank you. All right. Again, turning time over to Paul, appoint an attorney to represent the county council.
And I've had good discussion with John Luthi about this one. He represents the Cache County Corporation, the entity, not the council itself. And with some of our audit that's going to go on, we need the services of an attorney. We talked about possibly using some in his office, but felt like it was probably better for us to just appoint an attorney to represent the council. The folks from Sage have worked with an attorney on a lot of these things, so we need to appoint an attorney, have a motion to appoint an attorney to represent the council.
What are we talking about cost-wise, though?
It would be built into the audit fund, and it's just more to make sure that it's.
We're crossing all the Ts and dotting all the
Yes.
Is.
So we have that budget that we would stay within.
What's the name of the individual?
Blake Hamilton.
I move that we appoint Blake Hamilton as the council attorney.
I have a question. Is he employed only as long as the audit takes?
Or
Or how-
have him we would just then, do we make a motion, John, to then let him go, or we have to take a vote to appoint him to represent us? Do we take a vote then to appoint him not to represent us?
So there's state code that provides for county council to appoint an attorney to represent the council on legal issues. The backdrop to that piece of code is a Utah Supreme Court decision that prohibits county councils from shopping for opinions or going to get an attorney because you don't agree with your own county attorney. And so, and the provision, the new code provision has never been interpreted by our appellate courts. And so I think the safest thing is to not appoint an attorney for a specific issue or project, but that you would appoint an attorney to represent the county council who is not allowed by code to exercise any of the functions of the county attorney. And then at whatever time you decide you no longer want an attorney representing the council, then you would end that appointment.
Okay.
But you not do it on a per project or per issue basis.
So we just appoint him, the motion was just to appoint him as the council's attorney.
Okay. All right, I have a motion. Anybody?
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we appoint, I'm sorry, what was the name again?
Blake Hamilton.
Blake Hamilton as the county council attorney. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain because I'd like to.
Abstain, I'm not sure.
So 2 abstentions, 5 ayes. Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion regarding 2023 Cache County budget.
Well, I asked that be put on because when I asked, we still had a proposed budget with a $2.4 million shortfall. Now we are given a new budget that's something completely different. So can I just express my frustration that we've been working on this budget, trying to learn it, trying to go through it, and suddenly we're given something new. To me, that's no different than if we have something in writing and somebody just comes through and moves it out of the way and gives us something else. And I don't know what to say. Maybe Cameron can tell us more about what's in there and how this shortfall is being resolved. But it's just really hard to get a budget this late when we've got to approve it in not next meeting, but the following meeting. And so.
And I haven't even seen the new one yet.
Yeah, we just barely got it emailed to us.
Oh, and for some reason, my emails are not coming up.
You got it emailed at 5:01 and at 5:08.
Okay.
We could just go
Just
with the
tonight.
other budget. I mean, I don't know that you can really submit a draft budget. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. Either it's a tentative budget or it's not a tentative budget. But to keep changing it while the council's trying to work on it and go through it and learn it is really frustrating to me.
It's been very frustrating. I don't know the source, but this is the worst in my 6 years on the council. This is the worst budget year I've ever seen as far as process.
I agree.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Completely agree with that.
It's under my impression, and I've always been, I looked in some books there that we got from UAC and stuff, and I always, once a budget is presented to us, whether that be, which was presented to us, it was a preliminary, I don't care preliminary draft or anything, once it's presented to us at council, it becomes the council's budget.
Absolutely.
And then we, as a council, are to go through that budget, and we move, we do what we need to do with that budget. It's ours. But I tell you, it's become an if that, maybe that, changes, and it's volatile as can be, and then finally, we have our executive show up and say at 5:01 or 5:08, all of a sudden, and here's the budget at the beginning of this meeting, so that he can say that he sent us a balanced budget. I'm sitting there going, talk about confusion to not only a county council, but confusion also to the constituents of Cache County and the patrons of Cache County, and that's flat out wrong, again.
Cameron, did you have something to say? I'm sorry, go ahead, Gordy.
I'm just going to try to sum it up. What are we going to do? We've got a new budget that's presented. We're frustrated because an old budget was already presented. But I think if we're going to move forward, we're just going to have to throw out the old budget and look at the new one and just realize that we're flustered, we're concerned. And until we've had a chance to look at the new budget, that's not past judgment because maybe it's a good budget. I don't know. Cameron, you've seen it.
I thought we had a committee that would look at this issue.
Part of the frustration, I understand that's being said, is receiving one and then it changes. That process is not new to the council. That's happened each year. What's happened this year when we try to contemplate the council participation, in my honest opinion, the council has always participated in Cache County in the government, in the development of the budget. And participation this year has been different. Carl notes his disappointment with the way things worked out this year. There were some new things trying to be implemented, but it was expressed to try to provide participation by providing those budget documents previously. They were clearly marked draft for the purpose of signaling that there would potentially be further changes made. It was never intended to be a presentation of a final submission by the executive, which the way we understand the state code, he's still within his purview to submit that up until November 1st.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. He gave us a tentative budget, even though it's labeled draft, he gave us a tentative budget, and the budget, the parts of the budget
Would
that
you
I asked
prefer that
for,
he didn't give you a budget?
I would prefer that he gave it to us on the timeline that you put, and it's not fair, Cameron, that you're here taking the brunt of it because it's not your decision. You work for
It's
him.
not.
He needs to be here and be accountable for this. I'm so very frustrated with what has gone on. We can't do our job when he does this. Just because it says November 1st in state code does not mean that it's a good practice to give this to us in this short amount of time that we're going to have to go through this and try to figure things out after we've already been trying to work on it. I mean, and that's not your fault. And it's not fair for you to have to stand there and take the questions.
Has any part of this touched the budget committee?
Nope.
No, in fact, the budget committee meetings have been canceled.
Put together for a reason, that they start looking into all this, they start
That was
pulling all
the
this
point of
together
it. Mhm.
and help and get to a point to where we had a workable document. And instead of this last minute, there's a couple parts in here that I saw that, or that I better not say I saw, but as I looked at it, it's what was sent to us, it's really, it makes it's political fodder at this point, and that sickens me. That's all I'll say.
Not too.
Like I said, I haven't even had a chance to see it. My emails are not up.
To briefly, I guess, answer a question is concerning the municipal services fund that was out of balance. There were two things that contributed to making that balance as it is now. We did take a review over the requested or the estimated revenue amounts, specifically building permits. We felt like was quite low on the original estimate provided to us by Development Services. So there is some additional revenue increase that is in the Municipal Services Fund at this point.
Let me just clarify. We're expecting that the revenue from building permits in 2023 is going to be higher?
No, there is a reduction compared to 2022. What happened is the budget for 2022 has already been surpassed by more than $400,000. And when this budget was first being looked at by the director who was here at the time, in the middle of the year, that hadn't happened yet. The budget was set at something I think was $1 million. We're sitting at 1.4 million right now as of the end of September. I believe it was the end of September or mid-October. But he decided, you know what, next year isn't going to look as good as this year. So he reduced from what the budget amount was. So he submitted an amount of $800,000. Based on where we are at this point of the year and trying to factor in that we don't think next year will look as good as this year does, we still felt like $800,000 was too low of an estimate for building permits. So building permit revenue has increased from the prior amount. The second thing that we did is there are significant cuts that were made. Some in development services, some were positions, full-time positions that were being proposed are no longer being proposed. But there was some equipment cut also from the road department. The amount that's left in there for use of fund balance is $250,000, and that relates actually to a project that is going to be completed in 2023, for which revenue was transferred this year. So where the revenue has already been received by the fund, it falls to fund balance this year because it was not used, and then is being reappropriated from fund balance next year. So aside from that, it is balanced in municipal services. But any questions, especially after review, please reach out to me. I'm happy to review those and answer your questions.
Just one quick question. The property tax revenues budgeted are the same dollars that we budgeted for last year, correct?
They're estimated on the certified tax rate, so there's no tax increase proposed. Yeah.
Good question. Thank you, Cameron. Appreciate you being here to take the brunt of all of this.
Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure appreciate it.
Fair for you, Cameron.
All right, moving on. Oh, sorry, Dirk. Fast?
Sure. I just want to clarify, I take my job very personally, and this budget discussion has been interesting to me to hear. We talked about budget calendar quite a while ago. And we indicated there and that we will always follow and meet all statutory requirements and deadlines and work all that we can to include you all that we can. One of those things is that there's a statutory deadline to get to you statements of estimated expenditures and revenues by, I believe it's the last, October 1st or the last day of September. The last day of September.
It says, the statute says not less than the first day of the third last, something like that.
It's weirdly worded, but that's what we've been working from with you, are the statements of estimated expenditure and revenue. And that's clearly what we said they were. And then statute's very clear that it's the executive's job to get to the council the proposed tentative budget by November 1st. And so we've worked hard to get that to you a week early.
Dirk, I have to clarify something.
Could I finish if that's okay, Madam Chair?
Yes,
Let me just say something.
Let him finish,
Okay.
please. Let him finish.
And so we've also, throughout this entire process, worked very hard to make sure that we've talked to all staff and any questions we've offered for you to ask us questions. So instances like tonight where we had, 2 weeks ago, we had the budget opening and you had your first hearing on it. And then tonight, you're moving it on again. Where were the questions from council members to me or Cameron on any of those items during those 2 weeks? We haven't had them. And we just want to reiterate our dedication to you and the fact that I want to help you with your questions sincerely. And so I just wanted to make sure that it was fair to say that we've worked really hard to meet all statutory deadlines, all of your requests for information, all of your, especially the financial information and how statute tracks that. So I just continue to offer that to you, that any questions you have about the budget, let me know, and Cameron, and we'll get those to you as quickly as we can. I just wanted to Cameron talked about it, but he didn't talk about those statutory deadlines and make clear that we've beat those in both instances by about a week. So, thanks.
Dirk, I need to say that there are statutory deadlines that have to do with raising taxes, and those come in October, especially on an election year, and those are not considered. Further, in July, we talked about this and we're given a schedule that we would have the budget by July 29th. So I will just say that I think that statutory deadline is hiding behind things. You are not with the spirit of the law, which is giving the council enough time to do our job, because we have to have this budget passed by our last meeting in November in order to get the executive time to veto any line item vetoes, have that come back to us in order for us to override any veto that we feel the need to override in our regular meeting schedule. None of that has been taken into account. So this stuff about I'm meeting the November 1st deadline, you're not with the spirit of the law. And I'm really frustrated with that because you're not allowing us to do our job. And once you guys give us a tentative budget, yeah, it's ours. You don't get to come back and keep changing it so that we have no idea what's in it and we have to keep going back through it over and over and over again. That's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
Madam Chair, would you like me to respond to that or not really? I'm not sure what else we can do other than to offer time and time again. Please ask us questions.
How about saying I'm sorry?
Hey.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for meeting all of the statutory deadlines and working very hard to answer all of your questions. Like, I'm really, honestly, sincerely confused.
Okay.
Unless...
You want us to ask the questions. You want us to come to your office and ask the questions there.
Any way that you'd like. Email, phone.
Can't we do this in an open forum to ask you questions here?
Sure. I guess I assume that a lot of those first meeting and then 2 weeks later, second meeting is time for, I mean, you really do control, you're right, you control the pace, you control, but I guess I kind of figured that.
I guess I'm wondering, why don't we let the people know what questions we have? Why shouldn't they be watching this dialogue, which I think is very important, that when we ask a question that our absent executive again, he should be answering it too. Shouldn't this dialogue happen, the people's business in front of the people?
Sure.
Okay, that's all.
Sure.
Nolan, did you have something to say?
Why are the budget committee meetings canceled?
Yeah, that was one of my questions.
Lack of agenda items,
Because, I mean, how long has it been since we've had a budget meeting?
It's been a while, yeah.
Not quite as long as it's been that we've had a PR meeting.
So just,
I'm not sure if the budget committee before was the forum that you actually did go through all those budget meetings. I mean, we've had our, I don't know. And again, we have.
Most of the committee meetings, I know a lot of my committee meetings have not been held for about 6 months. So.
because that would be part of the budget. I remember when I first got on, Cameron got up there and talked about the tax revenue projections and everything else and where we're at, and then we could see that. That hasn't happened for a while. Do you know how long, Cameron? It's been a while. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on. Thank you, Dirk. Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks. All right, other business, UAC Annual Conference, November 15th through the 17th. Barbara, Nolan, Gina, David E., Carl, Gordon, Paul, Mark Hurd, Sandy Goodlander are attending that. The USU Extension Office would like to have a chili cook-off.
Hey, can I just ask a thing on the UAC?
Sure.
Because you got an email, and if you said I'll go, then it took you into a bunch of different things
Right,
in there.
yeah.
And it talked about hotel and everything else, and I'm like, I'm confused, that's why I called you. So I don't have to follow all that
No.
diddle.
Yeah. Good
Because
question.
not everybody has someone as great as Janine.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, I got into that, and I'm like, I ain't dorking around with this anymore, so.
Yeah, that's the way I got to, Nolan.
They asked for your personal email.
Yeah.
I gave it, and I thought they were just gonna say, hi, thanks for registering.
So now you're right, enter here, at your own risk.
Really?
Okay, thank you, I just wanted to clear that.
Okay, thanks, Nolan.
About the chili cook-off.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
debating where I'm gonna be on that day.
You're going to be here. Okay, anyway, USU Extension Chili Cook-Off, Tuesday, November 22nd. And if I understand that right, Janine, everyone can participate in that, correct?
Yeah, I don't have any details yet.
Okay, good deal.
How
And then,
hot are they making the chili?
I don't know, depends on who makes it, I
Asking for
guess.
me and Nolan.
Yes, is there any tomatoes in there?
That's what I was gonna think, if you want
Excuse me.
Nolan's vote, you're gonna have to do a tomato-less chili.
Spiceless?
It's called,
Tasteful.
it's called black beans.
All right. And an escargot chili.
Yeah, escargot chili. All right, the Employee County Christmas dinner is December 1st, correct, at the Event Center. All right, council member reports. We'll start with David Erickson.
I think I've said enough today. I've got a lot of questions, a lot of things, but hey, we've had a real good meeting with fire.
We had a good meeting with fire.
You know,
I think that's a good committee.
That's a good committee.
We are
Chief Hammer
having
is
committee
great to work
meetings.
with, and I think we've got extremely positive things going there, and that is one committee that Chief Hammer makes sure that we have.
Awesome. We do meet because we're also meeting with Policy and Ordinance Review, and who's over that?
That one.
That's Chief Hammer. That's right. So, anyway, anything else, Dave?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Gordy?
Nothing.
Nolan?
Two things. Yesterday, there was a garbage meeting. I think you called on that.
job
That
with
is
that with my
still
comments
going.
and-
Mayor Lindsay from North Logan is awesome in doing that, but Providence has pulled out of the consortium.
That was my understanding, too.
So, I'll try to keep you posted, but yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on there. So I don't know if you know any more on that, John, or what?
Yeah, and I'll say a little bit more on this next item 14.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
So, and then also, I think I talked to the council, there is the issue of the little bare bottoms that's coming for us, so watch that and be aware of that as a council.
If you don't know what that is, that sounds really bad.
He's from Wellsville.
I'm from Wellsville, so is it.
So him, it was just great.
It was just horrible, 'cause I got worse words. Now you took me off track.
Little bear.
Oh, I talked to the Development Services, and Development Service has pretty much tried to reach out and do some things there, so when you read it in there, it's not all the county's fault. So, I think we need to work with her and make sure we're going good, but we do have a new enforcement officer, and this guy is working and doing some things, so you're gonna hear some things coming through on what's going on with the enforcement officer. So, before we pass judgment, we need to make sure we get all the information on those.
When that gentleman called me, apparently he called you as well, but I said, I remember discussion 5 years ago, and so this isn't nothing new that you,
Right.
it's not been sprung upon you. So we'll have to see where it goes.
Yep. So.
Paul?
The only thing I just had a question on, I was here the other day, and it looked like we were gonna re-brick the side of between the buildings, and I was asking the guys, they were taking it out, and I said, well, what are you doing? He said, we're planting more grass. And I didn't realize in a drought year, we wanted to be putting in more grass. Does anybody know
Putting
anything
more
about
pavers
that?
in.
That's what I thought, but they pulled all the pavers out, and they're gonna,
Didn't you notice on the wall?
Yeah, but they had a whole new one sitting there, didn't they?
yeah, but they took them out, and they're gonna put grass in there instead, and I thought that was a pretty interesting thing to do in a.
The other
in a
thing I
drought
was
year.
wondering about, and I guess maybe I should have brought this up, how many of you drove along 10th West today, and there must have been 25 sheriff cars parked in front of our old shop? Any idea what was going on there? I thought there was no one standing around them, so I'm wondering, been fun to ask the sheriff, what was you doing with all your sheriff's car? Apparently they weren't patrolling, but no one else saw it but me.
I didn't see it.
So nobody knows.
I
Okay.
don't know what,
I
that
just-
doesn't make a lot of sense to me, though. Why would we put grass in there?
How come you missed that?
Because they had all new pavers there, and then they were gone, so I just thought it was interesting.
One row right in front of all.
Carl.
Well, I'm not sure that they had all new pavers there. There was an email that went out
I
to
know they use that building,
staff
but it's not
on
a
that to warn of the
display for sheriff's cars.
ongoing work, and I'm happy to forward you the email that we got from Dennis on that.
That'd be good.
Thanks.
Maybe they had a donut.
Carl?
Donut
Gina?
party in there.
Oh, I had a couple things that I thought maybe, I had somebody ask me a question on if the county was funding the open space signs or information, not the ones that came from the clerk's office, but, you know, like you've seen yard signs and things like that, and I don't know that we have anybody left here to answer that, but they were concerned and just wanted to check on that, so,
The answer is no.
Right.
okay. I
We
figured, but-
provided clear direction
Yeah.
to staff on that.
Okay, thank you very much, 'cause, yeah, they worried about that. Also, the library board, you don't hear a lot from the library board, but they are going to go look at River Heights Elementary and are considering just very, 10,000 feet, perhaps maybe moving the county library there. So we're gonna go look at that on November 14th or 10th or something. And just take a tour.
Old elementary, not the new one.
Yeah, the old one, not the new one. Sorry, I need to clarify. The old one, yeah. It's just a possibility. I don't know that there's budget for that, but it's just very, very preliminary. I wanted you guys to have a heads up about that. And then, we passed the agricultural advisory board last time, and I'm just wondering if you guys have any suggestions for membership in that, so that we can get that off the ground and get it going as the legislative session approaches.
Dave Erickson would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what, librarian?
Agricultural Advisory Board, we can keep Gordon, we'll put him on the Agricultural Advisory Board.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that would be.
And hold it every Tuesday night.
I will email
Or two
out
Tuesday
the,
nights a week.
like what we're looking
After
for again. If you guys
council
would please
meeting.
give me your ideas on who you think would be good so we can get that board started.
Okay, great.
Do we have a library now in the county?
Yeah, it's in Providence. And I sit on that board.
Don't we have a full-time librarian there?
Yeah, she came last time, or 2 times ago and talked to
And
us.
presented. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her name's Brennan.
And then we have quite a few volunteers that go there and help.
Couple employees. Yeah, it's a small library, but that's how they start. That's how
No
Norfolk
background checks
started.
at the library.
You should see.
I don't know about that. Maybe we should do some on that. But it's a great little library, and they do a lot of good, and do a lot of electronic books too that people throughout the valley can participate in. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I want to say is that I went to the One Utah Summit in Cedar City a week and a half ago. It was awesome. A lot of good things going on, and I really enjoyed it. Yep.
Hopefully we behaved ourselves while you were gone, Barbara.
I don't know if that's possible. No.
It's not.
All right. We need to adjourn to the meeting of the Cache County Service Area Number 1 Board of Trustees. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn to the meeting of the Cache County Service Area Number 1 Board of Trustees. And John will start our discussion on the MOU with Logan City.
Yeah, this will be brief. As Nolan mentioned, the county and the large majority still of municipalities in the county are still working together to form a consortium, the Cache Waste Consortium, to begin to provide solid waste services for the unincorporated county and those municipalities.
Could you use your paper clips and erasers so we can?
I like that, yeah.
That was really helpful.
That was good.
That is moving forward.
Okay.
That process is not likely to get a new private hauler in place before June 30th, which is the end of the contract with Logan City. Logan City has offered, under a proposed memorandum of understanding, to continue to provide that service for up to 3 years. They've offered to set a rate-setting committee for the North Valley landfill. And the key thing that they would like in exchange is, as we become you become satisfied as the Service Area Number 1 board, that you would work with Representative Snyder to repeal the bill that he put in place. I think Representative Snyder is watching the process, obviously. In negotiating that MOU, I have not been, and I'm keeping everyone up to date on what I hear from Logan City and through their attorney. To try to contact all 7 of you is difficult, and so I wanted this on the agenda tonight to ask that as the Service Area Number 1 board, that you would vote to designate 1 or 2 of you as the point people for my office to work with as we negotiate with Logan City, and then of course whatever gets negotiated would be brought back to the full board. But that's really all I had this on here for. And I would recommend Nolan or David, where you've been.
Shame on you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You've
Well,
already been involved to an extent, but I'm happy to work with any of you. But it would just be very helpful to have a point person to.
I have a question on that, because as we talked about that yesterday, some were wondering that if the reason some of these cities are pulling out is because of the congestion and it's cheaper for the trucks to be there rather than out in the outlying counties. And so as they discussed that, they were saying, well, the benefit of the county is our legal department helping in this consortium. So you dropping off the ball, are you getting somebody up to speed on this? Raise your hands.
I have been looping both of these, Mannion and Taylor Sorensen, who's our senior civil attorney has been in the last meeting. He helped me draft the initial draft of the.
Did Lindsay talk to you about the getting in and getting out and all of those things and fees?
Yeah,
and
so
stuff
we're updating that
they're just
interlocal
huge.
agreement.
But to me, that's what's keeping some of the other municipalities in there, is because they don't have that budget to bring in the legal, and so that's helping keep the county tied in with there. Now, we'll see, but because if people keep dropping out, luckily, according to Lindsay, the private hauler hasn't dropped, or says that won't impact their bid by having
Well,
Providence out.
and I should say that she's talked to more than one private hauler.
Yes, yes.
But there are still multiple private haulers who appear ready to submit proposals in response to an RFP. And they're the ones that submitted preliminary proposals, and Lindsay sent out an RFP.
Because
there's not an entity formed yet that can officially send.
But as I sit and listen to that, I can't believe that there's not going to be some fees involved in there as that consortium, and there's meaning having a full-time employee or somebody, because I don't know that a private hauler is going to do everything that they say they're going to do as far as the management and administrative things.
These are the kind of things that would love to have a point person to discuss with, so.
You're it, Nolan.
Well, when you point, there's 4 fingers moving back at you, so remember that.
As I exit the back door.
Yes.
Nolan and Dave will never forgive me for this, but since you suggested them, and I have all the confidence in the world that anybody up here could be capable
agree.
of doing it, since you already have the background and you've been in and you're already on the solid waste, and it's just you could be talking with John about it. I would make a motion that we appoint Nolan and Dave to be the point people that John talks to for this. And as part of that motion, I'd also say that I am very thankful that Logan's still at the negotiating table. And I think that having them work with these two gentlemen is going to be a positive for us.
I will second
I'll
that.
tell you a key thing that really is an important thing for the county to be involved, like Nolan said, is that this solid waste consortium is working to provide hauling, the weekly hauling. People put out their cans and that gets taken care of. What my understanding at this point is that the private haulers wouldn't take care of, kind of obviously, is when somebody from Nibley wants to take their truck to landfill on Saturday, or when JBS has a truck that needs to go, that it's going to be on service area number 1 to help negotiate with Logan City and help with the consortium to figure out how will that service continue to be provided at a rate that is good for all of the residents of the valley.
The council needs to think somewhere down the line, is it advantageous for the county to have its own landfill one day, or to be ready to consider that?
Well, and in the short term, perhaps a transfer station.
Right.
How long does service area 1 continue, though? Didn't we set a date for it to be done?
So we didn't set a date for service area number 1 to be done.
Yeah.
But I need to get out my clips and stuff and show the diagram. Service area number 1 contracts with Logan to provide service to the county, and then service area number 1 turns around and contracts with all of the municipalities and the county to provide that service. And then on this side, they've got Logan lined up to do it. The contract between Logan and service area number 1 is set to end June 30th.
Does that not then dissolve service area number 1?
No, it's still an entity.
It's still an entity, okay.
But service area number 1, you acted at our recommendation to turn around and notify everyone that you're promised to provide services to, that those services will end January 30th. The entity doesn't dissolve, but we've given notice that the services will end June 30th. Logan has come to say, look, we're willing to go beyond June 30th while everybody figures out how to move forward.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Is Logan willing to move on if Snyder pulls that right off, or does that keep us in bargaining power there? Or have they given a date on Snyder?
Their willingness to continue to haul is contingent on
him pulling
us
that.
You weren't in the
encouraging him to pull that.
breakfast meeting.
Right.
No.
But Casey said that he's
got it all, he has it all ready and written.
Yeah.
But but the agreements still need to be solidified. before he
Still
actually does it.
monitoring and making sure that,
That Logan stays operable with us on that, right?
but he's been impressed with the offer that they've made to service area number 1 in this MOU.
But it's interesting, some of the cities that have actually pulled away from the consortium and gone their own way have already reached out to their citizens and said that there is going to be an increase in trash collection.
Mm.
You know, they're already raising the rates and they haven't even started yet. I just found that kind of interesting.
Well, and that's what makes that entry point, the discussion we had the other day, very interesting, is are they laying back to come in afterwards and participate? For instance, can you have a no-compete with the private hauler, that they come in and work with the consortium, then those other cities say, hey, you're already here, so.
I've talked about that with Lindsay, and we've not answered that.
That's a
legal
very
question,
interesting
but it's
thought
one that
there.
we'll be-
All right, we have a motion on the table that's been made and seconded that we invite Nolan and David to participate. Appoint Nolan and David to be the point contact with the attorney's office. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Me.
Too bad. All right, yes, overruled. Okay, we need to adjourn back to our county council meeting. Will someone make a motion for that, please?
So moved.
To adjourn out of the service area number 1 Board of Trustees.
Okay. Second. It's been moved and seconded that we move out of the meeting for the Cache County Service Area Number 1. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now I need a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we move into executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I know we have to, but I was like.